right, welcome back to the party, everybody. This is Morty, and I am your host, Lunch, aka TheIndianJesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Everybody hit that like and subscribe. You know I would do it for you, and let's party. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We've got the earliest donation I've ever gotten. Shout out to Arrow. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party with the $2. Of course, you guys know every donation comes with a treat for Morty, and that counts towards our SWOGO at the top of the chat. Check that out. Thank you, thank you, thank you so very, very much. And of course, that makes you the sponsor of the stream already. Beautiful. Love it. Thank you, thank you, thank you so very, very much. So let's dive right in here. Some of you may or may not be familiar with Alex O'Connor. He is mostly an atheist streamer, but he had our boy David Pakman, and I think David thought because that Alex is an atheist that he was going in for an easy ride, but not quite. As always, guys, at the beginning of the video, please do let me know.
Pakman, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Why do the right keep winning?
Oof, that's
I like it. The underdog and the overlord. I love it.
There are many answers to that. In the United States, there's a few overlapping layers that explain that. Number one, I think their ideas are better summed up in tidy and pithy fashion, which we can get into. Number two,
I'll agree with that. I mean, I think he's going to, turn it into, well, they're just dumb. But I do agree that it's much easier to say, yes, I want good things.
at the congressional level, gerrymandering, the way that districts are drawn, has been helpful to the Republican Party to the extent that the right goes through the Republican Party in the US. That's another aspect. And then number three, there have been a number of different sort of structural realities, including around how media is and has been funded and sort of organized in the United States.
Oh, the mainstream media has been helping Trump. Okay, all right.
That has also benefited the political right. Now, this is just like a 30,000 foot view, a 10,000 meter view, which we can, dig into in more detail. But that's kind of the big picture, as I would put it, of the last 30 or 40 years.
Okay, so over the last 40 years, the right has won because we have better messaging and the mainstream media has helped us. I disagree, but let's see what Alex has got for him.
One of the things that strikes me when reading a book like yours, the Echo Machine, which I'll of course have a link to in the description, is that you spend an entire chapter on this question. Why is the right winning? And if somebody is a conservative voter or a Republican or a MAGA lover, and they read your book and you talk about, like you say, gerrymandering and funding and economics and the state of social media, they might read this and say that's all really interesting, but is it not possible that we're winning because we're just better, because we're correct?
I told you. Shout out to Gabriel. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. Very good to see ya. We also got Ty Cobb. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So there's a book about the effect of television on the masses written by Jerry Mander. I forget the title. Is that real? Is that real? That's funny. That's real. But welcome, welcome, welcome.
Interesting. But is it not possible that we're winning because we're just better, because we're correct, because we are capturing people's imagination? I mean, from what I see in America.
So notice how Alex is already saying we. I understand he's saying somebody could read that and think, but he is framing it as we, and he is English, so obviously not an American, but
it doesn't seem to me just a result of like some, funky business when dividing up the voting lines. It seems like a lot of Americans have been genuinely swept up in a movement. In other words, like, how much of the right's success do you attribute to these slightly more dubious factors, and how much do you attribute it to a genuine ideological interest?
Well, I think it's interesting because you mentioned two things together there that I think are actually two different things. You mentioned maybe they actually have the right ideas, or maybe people have been swept up by some of those ideas. I don't think that that's the same thing. So I'll give you a concrete example of that. Right now, serious economists of all political stripes are looking at this tariff scheme that, depending on which day you look, it's either on or it's off. I don't even know as of this moment, because today there was a big announcement about a deal. I couldn't tell you as of this moment whether the tariffs are on or off, or what percentage and on which countries. But
let's check the date of this. This was posted yesterday, but I assume, okay, so it's May 8th. This is May 8th. So this is way before any Iran stuff, which is good because I'm kind of sick of talking about that already. But yeah, so this is from May.
Look, I couldn't tell you as of this moment whether the tariffs are on or off, or what percentage and on which countries. But there's this idea that that scheme is going to be very good for the average American long term. There may be some short-term pain, but there's long-term gain. One question is whether that's salient with voters and whether they accept it. The other is whether it's economically and empirically verifiable. The economists say no. Blanket tariffs are an import tax. They will raise prices. They will reduce job creation. They will slow the economy. That may be the truth, and yet people can still be swept up by the idea. And so I do think your point is a good one.
So again, we're just coming back to, anyone on the right is just stupid.
One in this sense. In 2016, 2015, when his campaign started, Donald Trump correctly identified grievances and concerns among a large swath of Americans. And I think actually we've seen it in Europe as well in terms of motivating reasons to say the sort of center-left order has left us behind. We want to look at something that's on the political right. That is true. Framing himself as the man with the solutions who could fix trade and fix healthcare, all of the claims that he made in the first term, that was demonstrated to be untrue. So I think what's really interesting about what you're kind of posing is
you funny.
People have been swept up, yes, and I think Democrats and the left are significantly to blame for that to a degree, and I talk about that a lot on my program, but that doesn't mean that they are right. People are often swept up by things that are not demonstrable, as I've seen you point out, to a
Yeah, I would say you are one of those people swept up in a whole lot of bullshit.
A lot of these religious apologists, for example, in conversations, people can believe something that's not true.
So
yep,
you're right that I sort of threw in a couple of things there, but I suppose take just the strength of the movement, true or false. A lot of people, as you say, have been swept up by this. And so there's an extent to which I think it's interesting to look at the fact that, there might be more funding for one political operation than another, and there
much more money on the left.
Might be some dubious gerrymandering.
Actually, I don't really know about that.
of voting borders, for example. But at the same time, I do see a genuine movement here. I see MAGA as an actual movement, distinct from general right-wing conservatism, distinct from republicanism. It's its own thing, as everybody notices.
The Brit gets it better than the American political pundit. This is the state of the modern online left.
And so that's why when I read this chapter about why the right are winning, I wonder to what extent left-wing analysis can neglect the fact that it is just a popular movement. You know what I mean?
I don't think he does, because that is precisely what you're talking about. The inability to see that, it just is generally a popular movement.
Totally am with you there, but I would actually place less credit on the movement being genuinely popular than the degree to which it fills a vacuum that, to a great degree, the left is to blame for. And some examples of that, yesterday I did a commentary about there are two issues, immigration and crime, on which Democrats and the left failed in our November of 2024 elections. And so for example, to pick...
Didn't stop you from supporting those ideas, but apparently you knew that they were wrong. A grifter.
And the left failed in our November of 2024 elections.
Right? Because you would expect that if he's like, clearly this issue, and that issue are why the left failed, then he wouldn't be pushing this issue, and this issue. He would be, say what you want about the Young Turks, but when they don't agree with something on the left, they will let you know. When does David Pakman ever do that?
And so for example, to pick crime, when Trump and right-wing politicians, candidates, elected officials bemoaned urban crime and used all of the traditional and predictable kind of dog whistles around that, we, meaning I as someone on the left, could show up and say, here's the chart of violent crime nationally, and it points down. Here's the chart of property crime nationally, and it points down.
I have two charts, therefore I'm right.
The idea that left-run cities are more dangerous than right-run cities is wrong, and we can compare New York and Oklahoma. I could do all of that.
I think it's the angle of the camera, but there's plenty that we can make fun of David Pakman for. I don't think that bookshelf is as crooked as it looks. If you look at the top shelf here, one, it looks rounded, so it looks like some, not necessarily fisheye, but let's stick with what he actually sucks at.
But Kamala Harris and other Democrats did it to such a degree that it came off as dismissive. And voters don't want to feel as though their concerns aren't being heard and they're being told what you believe matters doesn't matter.
So why weren't you leading the charge on saying all of these things before the election? All you had to say was orange man bad.
So this is sort of the problem, I think, with democratic politics to a degree, which is it kind of doesn't matter if we have the facts on our side. It matters if we want to stick to truth. But it doesn't matter in terms of figuring out a way to connect with voters and win elections. And that vacuum, I think, has as much to say for Trumpian success as the sort of rightness or popularity of the specific ideas that it proposes.
This perspective is definitely crooked. You are right there. For there, you are absolutely right.
What do you think the MAGA movement is, as distinct from being a right-wing American?
Good question.
A couple of decades ago, what is it that's distinct about the Donald Trump movement?
And I say good question, not because it's like, oh, I wonder what the answer is, but it's a good question because I wonder what David Pakman thinks of it.
Well, the biggest difference in terms of the electorate is that it has gone beyond the sort of three factions of the traditional Republican voter, and it's kind of activated or created or activated a fourth one. So the way I usually break it down is there are three primary constituencies for pre-Trump Republican voters. You have the kind of Mitt Romney style low tax business conservative, you have the libertarian right, and then you have the religious right. What Donald Trump did, to his credit, by seizing upon legitimate concerns, economic concerns, is to use a sort of libertarian-ish populist rhetoric to bring out a fourth constituency that is people who knew they weren't happy with the status quo, but they didn't identify with any of those three factions I just mentioned. This was a lot of new voters, people who
Hey, man, spot on. So if you know all of this stuff, then why do you peddle such crazy bullshit? Because you're a grifter.
Previously either were too young to have voted and their first foray into politics was with Trump in 2015, 2016, or they were part of the 40 to 50% of Americans that didn't traditionally vote in presidential elections.
That was me. He's right. I was, a default liberal kind of in effect, but, I never voted. I never was, into politics. And I thought that when I started getting into it in 2015 for the 2016 election, that, mainstream media convinced me that Donald Trump is so bad. And I was a Bernie bro. But, once they fucked over Bernie, then I was like, I guess I have to vote for Hillary because orange man bad. And thankfully, I've learned my lesson.
So that is a distinct feature of Trumpism. Now, of course, the religious right initially resisted. They liked Ted Cruz in 2016. When Ted Cruz didn't get beyond 3%, they really didn't want Hillary. And so, yes, they sort of initially begrudgingly came along. The libertarians said, Trump's closer to me than where Hillary is. So there was
which is another reason why Dave Smith being like, oh, I'm not for this is not a big deal at all.
Essence there, but I think the spark of it that allowed Trump to win that primary by attrition when they started with 18 candidates and a lot didn't get beyond 2 or 3 was this fourth constituency that he mobilized.
Ty said he's breathing his own farts, believes his own bullshit, but I think it's apparent that that's not the case because when we would hear that bullshit when right now when he's talking. If you compare this to what his actual channel is like and the types of things that he says on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't match up. These Republicans are this, that, whatever. And it always goes back to towing the party line and orange man bad. If he understands these things, then he shouldn't be saying such low-level stuff. He should have better commentary. And he doesn't. Why? Because he knows that if he just toes the party line, he's going to get more views and more subscribers and more money.
And another thing I'm really interested in, and I suppose these are sort of primer questions to getting into the nitty-gritty, is the extent to which you think the MAGA movement this time around is significantly different. I think a lot of voters in America and international observers thought to themselves, Donald Trump is a fool. It's comical to watch this from afar. But,
definitely is funny.
We got through his administration. He lost the next election. Biden came in. It goes back. It goes forth. It's not the end of the world. So there
was an insurrection.
Prospect of another Trump presidency, people look at this and go, look, we've been through this before. It might not be great. Living standards might go down. The economy might suffer, but the world isn't going to end. And they see a kind of sensationalism that is so often criticized in particularly American media as applying to the critics of Trump too. But do you think that this time around something really is different?
Well, I think in these first 100 and something days of this presidency, we've already seen things that are objectively different. Now, the degree to which that's a 5-alarm fire and we need to be screaming from the rooftops, well, I mean, we can sort of talk it through, and depending on our values, we might come to say it isn't that big of a deal or it is, but a few things that are objectively different. In his first term, there was at least a sort of pantomime of hiring qualified people.
You mean all the people that he fired, as opposed to all the people from your party? Now we might be getting into some fart sniffing. You're going to tell me that first, you think that the people that Trump hired the first time around in 2016 are better for America, whether you agree or disagree, that they are better for America than people like Tulsi Gabbard. All right, bro. All right, bro.
There was at least a sort of pantomime of hiring qualified people.
What would we do without what the fuck is his name? Not Bolton. The lawyer, Michael Cohen. What would we do without Michael Cohen? Shout out to Arjun. Welcome to the party. Very good to see you. We got David Pakman and our boy Alex O'Connor.
It isn't that big of a deal, or it is, but a few things that are objectively different. In his first term, there was at least a sort of pantomime of hiring qualified people. A lot of them very quickly ended up at odds with Donald Trump.
Right, because they weren't qualified people. See how that works? Now he's hired again, and it's people from your party.
You had Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State. I'm not the type of person who says, let's put an oil man as Secretary of State. Wouldn't be my preference. But he's better because the establishment has decided that he is a good person to be in the establishment. Remember Drain the Swamp and how all of us, I mean, I was kind of against him at that point, but collectively, all of us were like, you're supposed to drain the swamp, and now you're hiring all these people. But because they weren't in the swamp, to David Pakman, they are more qualified than the people that we have now, despite the fact that he'd be more willing to vote for the people in Trump's cabinet than last time. Speaking out of both sides of his... I'm not the type of person who says, let's put an oil man as Secretary of State. Wouldn't be my preference. But he had a certain level of competence and gravitas that when you look at someone like the current Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, or the current Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, or now there's a sort of wellness guru who has been ushered in the last 24 hours to be the Surgeon General who...
So, headline. Headline. David Pakman likes Rex Tillerson over Tulsi Gabbard.
Is in favor of glucose monitors for everybody, regardless of any medical reason to do it. There's another layer here where...
how horrible to monitor our health.
We're skipping right to the loyalty is the number one currency for hiring. That's different. Number two, the degree to which the pantomime around we support law and order has gone down the toilet is notable, where we see judicial orders being ignored. We see claims...
Why is that? Why is that? Oh, we're just going to brush right on by that. Oh, okay. Okay. Hey, shout out to TV Viewerski. Welcome to the party. Very, very good to see you with the $10 PayPal. Thank you so very, very much, sir. Let's get rid of this and treat the Overlord. And of course, that made you the new sponsor of the stream. Thank you so very, very much. Guys, that's 2 out of 15 and 12 out of 50. Let's hit that goal. Let's bulk me up. Thank you so very, very much, sir. And welcome to the party.
Where we see judicial orders being ignored. We see claims about what courts say being disputed as those are bad judges. And therefore we've determined...
Are they bad judges? Or are you just assuming that to say a judge is bad is automatically wrong because, did this judge run on specifically taking down Donald Trump no matter what? That's a bad judge.
Say being disputed as those are bad judges, and therefore we've determined it's a bad judge and we can ignore them. I won't give you every example, but this sort of authoritarian slide is different. Now,
it's authoritarian to have your own ideas about someone that the government says is okay. This is the semantic obfuscation. It is authoritarian to look at a human being and say they're not perfect. Authoritarian. Okay.
Judge, and we can ignore them. I won't give you every example, but this sort of authoritarian slide is different. Now, I tried to be honest with my audience. You know, sometimes I'm on the side of not being alarmist and people write to me and say, this is a much bigger deal than you claim. Sometimes I'm on the other side and I get emails, you're being too hyperbolic. I'm trying to just be accurate and honest with my audience.
Are you lies? Shout out to DJ Isolated in the building. Welcome. So let's go. We are going. Welcome. So I said, I used to get so up in arms about the Donald in 2000, whatever. Then I realized I don't vote. And also, 0 fucks given about politics. Spoken like a true Gen Xer. Guys, if you can do me a huge favor and hit that like button, it is free, it is easy, and it helps out the channel so very, very much. He said, well, I am the authority of what I like. Usually, that's how it works. I don't know. I mean, just usually.
I get emails, you're being too hyperbolic. I'm trying to just be accurate and honest with my audience. I don't know where this is going to land 3.5 years from now.
But like, even to sorry to nitpick here, but to even bring that up, like, you have a gigantic channel compared to most people. What does he have? Like at least 1 million, 500,000, if not more. Shout out to Alex, didn't even put his shit in the description. That's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, he's got quite the channel. And so even at my channel size, which is I haven't even hit 5,000 subscribers. He's got 3 million. He's got 3.24 million. So to be like, well, you know, sometimes I do this and people don't like it, and when I go the other way, like, yeah, that's the nature of this whole thing. Like, even if it is mostly fake, there's still at least 500,000 people that genuinely watch this guy. And it doesn't matter how large the audience is. There's always going to be people who, when you say this, some people are going to say you should have gone more this way. And some people are going to say you should have gone more this way. You can never make anybody happy. But just got to throw in a little bit of victimization. You know, that's their native tongue, right?
It's good, Pat.
Accurate and honest with my audience. I don't know where this is going to land 3.5 years from now, but the starting 100 and something days is objectively of a different caliber than anything we've seen before.
Do you think that by the end, I mean, we've seen some extraordinary things under Trump. I mean, like the whole storming of the Capitol, blah, 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 all of that kind of stuff really increases my confidence in the idea that there are far more unpredictable, extraordinary things coming down the line. We've seen serious talk from people like Steve Bannon and Joe.
Okay, fair, but I think a lot of that is going to come from reactions to the left. But hey, I'll see where you're going with it.
Extraordinary things coming down the line. We've seen serious talk from people like Steve Bannon and joking talk by people like Donald Trump himself about the prospect of running for a third term. Some would-be legal theorists saying that, yes, the Constitution says that you can only run for 2 terms, but it means consecutive terms. Do you think at the end of this administration, we are going to see a serious national conversation about a third Donald Trump term?
And I just put up a poll asking something similar, a little bit different, asking, should there be a third Trump term? Yes or no? Curious to see what you guys say. I think some of you already know where I'm at with this.
Do you think at the end of this administration, we are going to see a serious national conversation about a third Donald Trump term?
I don't think we are. And we get to those, you know, to your question of, is there an exaggeration with regard to the degree of danger and novelty here? This is one where some in my audience say, David, you're not taking this seriously enough. But I think Steve Bannon is a professional troll and he knows how to push buttons with this third term stuff. When Trump has been asked about it, even Trump is struggling to play coy in the way that he normally would. And in a recent interview with NBC News, he said, I'm going to serve 8 years and that's it. I do not expect there to be any serious play at a third term for Donald Trump. I could be wrong. I might end up eating my microphone, but I don't think so.
You my microphone. You're so, like, what do you? Just every little thing about people like this. I might have been eating my microphone. Like, Anyway, so 2/3 of you so far are saying no. Make sure you get your votes in. DJ said, before not breaking up CIA like Iran, likely. After, hell to the no. Yeah, I think that was a pretty significant factor. That being said, the attention span is very short. So I don't even know if I mean, depending on how this plays out, I don't even know if Iran is going to be relevant to our 28th, or the 2028. We will see. As they were just saying, some crazy shit might be going down.
Add a third term for Donald Trump. I could be wrong. I might end up eating my microphone, but I don't think so.
The ideological movement behind MAGA wants to last for a long time, though. It wants to revolutionize.
Right. We want to exist for a long time. And love or hate Trump, that is not something that he can do. MAGA has become bigger than Trump. And while there is a lot of Trump loyalists and culty people, we as the larger movement need to show that, great job. We did need you, Trump, in 2015. And you know what? You were an amazing choice in this past election. I don't know if you're doing so great so far, but definitely better than Kamala. Point being, we need to move beyond Trump. She said if that is true, then MAGA will deserve the technocratic nightmare posed as a monarchy. I agree with you. I completely agree. No third term, please.
Cool movement behind MAGA wants.
Or more so, no third term talk. It's like if it was just to troll, then it would be funny. But it's not.
Wants to last for a long time, though. It wants to revolutionize the right wing of American politics and stay in power for as long as possible. So if not this kind of discussion at the end of Trump's presidency, what do you suspect? Like, is there going to be a clear successor? Do you think J.D. Vance takes over the MAGA movement as a Trump too? Or do you think MAGA kind of dies with Trump and evolves into something else?
Another great question. Shout out to Alex O'Connor. Very good at these interviews. And I mean, I think that it's pretty obvious that there is going to be a standout or a couple of standouts, and whether Trump is going to specifically like anoint the next one, or if it's going to be something where he's like, hey, you know, there's two people out there, that JD is great and this other person is up in the polls, and I think they're both great, and as long as it whatever I don't know, but it has to be shown to be bigger than Trump. So far we know that it's bigger than Trump, but it has not been shown to be bigger than Trump, because all who's had is Trump.
Vance takes over the MAGA movement as a Trump too, or do you think MAGA kind of dies with Trump and evolves into something else?
It's all going to depend on what happens between the November 26 midterm election and the 2028 presidential election. I've been talking to a lot of senators and members of Congress lately who kind of share their off-the-record conversations with their Republican colleagues.
I've been hearing that, right? And they're saying that the war's over. And I mean, if so, great. But like, give me the details. What happened? And of course, you're gonna have people. What? You don't know the exact details of the geopolitical movements of the military from yesterday? Yeah, no. DJ's an actual monarchy could be based, but both sides seem to want the dorky villains to run the world. I don't know if a monarchy would be great. I mean, it really depends on the family, right? It really depends on the dynasty. But there's so many ways that could go wrong. I don't know about that.
Who kind of share their off-the-record conversations with their Republican colleagues. And there's going to be some moment, maybe it's going to be early 2027, something like that, where Republicans are going to look at a couple of things. They're going to look at what is Donald Trump's approval rating and his salience. And listen, Trump is an obese old guy. We just don't know what the state of his health is going to be in 2027, but there's going to be sort of an assessment done and a calculation. If you are an elected Republican that wants to continue in elected office beyond 2028, you put your finger to the wind and you say, am I better off on the MAGA train, or is it time to get off? It will be
well, and I mean, to his own point, it depends on what the MAGA train in 2020 in 2027. It depends on what that looks like.
Dictated by events that have not yet happened. If Donald Trump can do something which is unusual in American politics, which is to have a recovered approval rating. Approval ratings for American presidents tend to only go down. As voters find something the president did that they don't like, when you lose them, you tend not to get them back, except in situations like a 9/11 for George W. Bush. If Donald Trump's approval rating continues down, if the damage of the tariffs becomes palpable in a way that's undeniable, you will see an anti-MAGA Republican movement and an attempt to go in a different direction. If Trump ends up being able to play kingmaker, he will get his choice. And whether it's, recently he said both J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio are doing a good job, he'll be able to choose. So I think we just have to wait on that.
Fair enough. And so I just asked ChatGPT. People are saying that the war with Iran is over. Can you link me a short video? And this is what we got. So let's see what we got.
The concern would always be that this whole crisis would push them further towards accelerating the drive towards getting a nuclear bomb, because they'll see that's the only thing capable of ensuring deterrence and perhaps the regime's survival.
One of the things we've learned over the years is that any kind of military intervention, it has unintended consequences. And
Hey, shout out to Gabriel. Thank you so very, very much for the $5. Said, thanks for reviewing my debate, and I appreciate the feedback and advice. Yeah, man. I mean, it is definitely more difficult than it seems. Like, a lot of people see debates and think, well, it's just talking. It's a bit more than that. And, the ability to have the humility to see, okay, that didn't necessarily go the way that I wanted it to go, but, I represented myself decently, and couple things I could change and do a lot better. And I definitely, like I said, I think you've got some great stuff up there. But thank you so very, very much, sir.
is that any kind of military intervention, it has unintended consequences, and we just don't know what those are going to be.
There are all sorts of doomsday scenarios as well being speculated about around the possibility of dirty bombs, asymmetric warfare, Iran, activating terrorism cells. What's the calculation there? Hello and welcome to the
I didn't realize it was a whole 30-minute video. I said the shorter the better, but all right, let's just do what they're
somewhere
saying.
Between total obliteration and significant damage. That's what the American administration is saying it has done to Iran after its weekend airstrikes on its nuclear facilities. But it may be a bigger phrase than that in terms of the significance for the region and the wider world. For this special forecast this morning, I'm in Washington, D.C. Our international editor, Lindsay Hilson, joins us from London, and our correspondent, Secunda Kamani, joins us from Jerusalem. Lindsay, the Iranian foreign minister is going to Russia today, and there have been airstrikes by Israel on Iran. I mean, where does it look like this is going today?
Well, at the moment, what the Iranian foreign minister is doing is he's trying to get as much diplomatic support as possible. And the Russians have been a little bit equivocal, really, in their support for Iran. But today, Putin seemed to be more condemnatory of the Americans than he had been before. But diplomatic support, what is that going to do for Iran at this point? Okay,
so there's more so chatting about it. I was looking for more of like a news type, this just happened and this person said this, but somebody has something along those lines. We will take another side quest. All right. Thank you again, Gabriel. Let's dive right back in here.
To know what extent of their unlimited access Vantage plan. With that said, back to David. I want to know what extent, or to what extent, you believe that this MAGA movement, or just this sort of movement that underlies Donald Trump to any degree, is one of political principle. Because one of the things that you write about in your book and have spoken about too is the extent to which political principles are just for show. They're
projection. I was already going to warn you that the projection is coming, because as we say all the time, people on the left, typically the leftists, we'll say the leftists, they don't have principles. They just have positions. And so now he's going to completely flip that on its head. And already, come on, man.
About too is the extent to which political principles are just for show. They're
maybe for you, my principles are held genuinely.
Sensible. It's like, yeah, we believe in free speech and we believe in free markets until it doesn't benefit us anymore.
That does sound like David.
Do you think that there is such a thing as like a political principle, or set of political principles that genuinely underlies this movement? And if not, then like, what is it? Is it just like an ultimate goal? Is it like a vibe? Like, what is it that's behind all of this, if not political principles?
We can talk about fiscal conservatism, free speech, law and order, free trade, all of this stuff, they all wither away. It's like when you have cotton candy and you pour water on it and it's suddenly gone. The real principles and goals
Wait. What exactly is the cotton candy in this situation? Is he saying MAGA is the cotton candy and you pour a little water on it and it's gone now? Okay, dude. And yeah, DJ saying Trump doesn't need to try to run a third term. JD Vance will sweep. It has been written. And again, I would say be careful. 3 years is a long time. What else did I miss here? Reuters is reporting Iran has agreed to the ceasefire. Fox said Israel agreed. All right. I mean, hey, I've been against actions of Trump to then in hindsight be like, all right, I guess that worked. If it works, it works. And specifically, I use the example of when we were dealing with North Korea. And I have a specific memory. I don't remember exactly where I saw it, but I have a memory of Trump at some table. And the angle was like that. And I remember him saying, you know, the whole fire and fury line. And I was just like, hey, yo, chill the fuck out. You're dealing with a crazy dictator. You don't know what's going on here. You say shit like that, he's going to blow us all up. And then he didn't. And it raised the question that, okay, well, if you watch somebody step on a banana peel, and when they slip, they do a backflip. And then you see him do it again. Then at what point do you accept, I guess this person could just do backflips? And I think that's our Trump.
On it, and it's sudden.
That doesn't mean I'm in favor of war and stuff, but if it's over, then good.
Gone. The real principles and goals that have sustained since 2015 have been loyalty to Trump, no matter.
Oh, what a good hire in. I don't know if you missed it, but he was saying, at least in the first term, Trump had the pantomime of hiring good people. But now that he took all the people from the party that I support, it's terrible. I mean, you cannot make this shit up.
Sustained since 2015 have been loyalty to Trump, no matter what position he takes on an issue, and a desire to undo or cancel what prior Democratic presidents have done or what Democrats today want to do.
Right. So you're discussing a faith in a human being. We, as voters, obviously can't tell the future, but we feel that our best bet for that election was to go with Trump. And even though, myself included, some of us were like, hey, yo, why are we going to war? That if it actually worked and did what we wanted to do to disarm Iran and not get us closer to World War III, then is what it is. I still don't like that we had to go that way, and I wonder if there was a more diplomatic way to go about things. But what do you want from me? Did we get a projection? We'll get there when we get there. Shout out to Larkbark. Welcome to the party. Afternoon where you are. God damn, it's dark out here already. But welcome to the party. Yeah, right now he's going to switch over and be like, well, we need to keep bombing them because reasons. I'm trying not to believe it. What you talking about, Willis?
What prior Democratic presidents have done or what Democrats today want to do. Those are really the sustaining principles. And you can have your choice, right? If it's law and order, well, they don't like certain court orders, so they're ignoring them.
Okay, so we already went over this. Do we have reason to not like the court orders, or are we just not liking court orders because they're going against our people? Now, I know what you would say, but that's not the case.
When it's free speech, well, they spent COVID.
I swear to God, if he brings up the book banning
orders, so they're ignoring them. When it's free speech, well, they spent COVID wanting to tell private corporations what they should be forced to publish or.
That is projection. You're going to tell me that if we take one party that is not in favor of the First Amendment over COVID. It was the Republicans? Brava, brava, brava. What are you talking about? Like I said, statements are so absurd that you need a high level of patience to deal with him. Indeed. Indeed. DJ said, normie left, right, normie right or left, normie politics. I'll just say normie politics don't apply to this war. It was going to happen no matter who was in the White House. And I mean, I don't know enough to refute that. I just don't. I didn't hear a reason why military action was necessary. That was all I was looking for. That was where as the isolationist, America first, don't want to spend money, don't want people to die. Give me the reason why this is necessary, and I'll go with it. I'm trusting the experts, but you have to give me something. Shout out to Callie. Shout out to Callie.
Wanting to tell.
We need to hear this. We need to hear this in
Ignoring them.
I can't believe he's about to say that the right was tamping down free speech during lockdowns and COVID. That is so insane.
When it's free speech, well, they spent COVID wanting to tell private corporations what they should be forced to publish or forced not to publish. And now people are being snatched off the street with no due process for things they said or wrote.
Are people being snatched off the street with no due process, or is that part of a routine ICE raid?
When it's free trade, we now have this blanket tariff protectionism racket. So I try to go by what they've done, compare it to what they've said. And what I'm seeing is that none of those principles seem to withstand even the most minor inconvenience in the sort of marketplace of ideas and politics.
Projection. Oh man, we gonna get drunk. We gonna get drunk tonight. Dilly, more a projection.
But something.
Alex is
Convenience in the sort of marketplace of ideas and politics.
But something must be motivating this aside from just loyalty to Trump, because of course loyalty to Trump is loyalty to a man who wants to do something. I guess he wants to stay in power and rule America, but like, if it's not genuinely, I mean, it's one thing to say that people sort of think they have these principles, but when they run up against challenge, like, yeah, they're a bit confused and they're not entirely sure. But if people are willing to just sacrifice their principles willy-nilly, what are they sacrificing it to? Like, what is the ultimate goal of the MAGA movement, if not things like restoring free speech and getting the economy back on track and all the things that they'll say? What actually is it, do you think?
Well,
it's just a cult that they just like being racist and being mean.
Well, it's versions of that. So, for example, it's restoring free speech for those they believe have had it taken from them, right? So it's they just interpret these principles differently. And so this is why when we point and say, but look, you say you want to restore free speech, but here's 5 ways in which you're actually limiting it.
Where was the 5 ways? What, the fucking book banning, that no books were banned? Where did people go against free speech on the right? Oh, that didn't happen. Okay.
Hey, but look, you say you want to restore free speech, but here's 5 ways in which you're
put one in the chat if you think he's actually going to name any of those 5 ways.
Actually limiting it. You then sometimes uncover the real goal, which is, well,
come on, Alex. I would have asked for a specific example there. I mean, you may not be super political, but in terms of, the logic of a conversation, you should have definitely been like, okay, what are one of those ways? 5 ways we what?
We believe the speech of political conservatives and white Christians has been suppressed. And so what we mean by restore free speech is equalize for what we've identified as an injustice.
Correct. Free speech for everyone, regardless of the identity that you are or decide to present yourself as. Is there an issue with that, David? Sounds like you don't like that.
I might disagree with their assessment, right? And so that's why we would see it differently. But it's often that there's a goal below the superficial talking point that relates to how they really see the world.
What did
Mel describe, like describing it badly? 5 ways to badly describe what you were saying. Fair enough.
What do you mean when you said earlier about how the right is better at condensing their ideas into like pithy statements. And
Black Lives Matter. My body, my choice. No, it is illegal on stolen land.
why is that the case?
Okay, couple of examples. Abortion is murder,
Yeah, that's not a slogan. That's just a fact, you fucking moron.
and therefore it should be illegal.
Uh-huh.
Took me a second and a half. Now, what is the position of the left? It's not
Mental gymnastics. That's the position of the left. You need to create some bullshit in order to change the very clear fact that abortion is murder, therefore should be illegal. You need to spin some bullshit to rationalize why that's not the case, instead of just looking at the facts. When does life begin? At conception. I will remind you all that I'm a raging atheist. Not one person on your screen tonight. Well, I don't know about what you've been doing before, but not one person on the screen of this stream believes in God. But two of us understand when life begins.
me a second and a half. Now, what is the position of the left? It's not abortions are awesome, let's increase the number.
I mean, I definitely saw a man wanting to be the first trans woman to ever, or excuse me, sorry. I mixed up the genders. It was a trans woman. Nope, I was right the first time. A trans man who wanted to be the first man to ever have an abortion. That didn't happen? That wasn't celebrated? Lies.
What is the position of the left? It's not abortions are awesome, let's increase the number. That also took a second and a half, but of course it's not the position of the left. The position is we're dealing with a complicated issue that overlaps culture and medicine and science and the law and bodily autonomy. And what we want is to make it's a
My body, my choice. I think that's less words than abortion is murder, therefore it should be illegal. 8 words. My body, my choice. Literally half.
Stupid.
Literally half. Your entire premise is incorrect, sir.
and the law and bodily autonomy. And what we want is to make it's a losing argument right now.
Right, because it's wrong, not because it's too many words. We need to make it simple enough for the Republicans. No. You're just wrong.
We could workshop it and we could say,
Okay, then do it. Is that not your job? Workshop it. Oh, you can't. Because no matter how you do it, it comes down to the fact that abortion is murder.
abortion is about freedom. We're for freedom, and therefore abortion must be legal.
Well then murder must be about freedom, because you should have the freedom to murder whoever you want.
It's not quite as emotionally salient.
It's not emotionally as salient or as accurate to what the fuck you're talking about, you fucking grifter.
And so that's an example of where
A very bad example. My body, my choice.
I'm not even necessarily
And then talking about principles, you didn't keep that during COVID. What are we talking about?
is emotionally salient. And so that's an example of where I'm not even necessarily placing credit or pushing blame. I think the position of the right benefits from some of this simplistic thinking. I'll give you another example. It's your money. You should get to keep it without the government taking it.
Uh-huh. So you're just like saying things that you disagree with. What is wrong with the simplicity of that fact? All you're doing is trying to paint these very simple ideas. Oh, they sound simple. They sound great. And they are great. But you don't understand because you're just a stupid Trump supporter.
For example, it's your money. You should get to keep it without the government taking it. That's pretty good. The opposite, it's not your money. Give it all to the government, is not the policy of the American left. It's okay. Listen, it's your job, which you've obtained based on a combination of infrastructure that's been built by the government and the ability to enforce contracts, education that may involve public, and we want an amount of taxation appropriate to the level of services. You kind of get the direction I'm going. It's already necessarily kind of convoluted.
I'll just go with Luckbark here. I am going to get triggered. I am telling you, I am going to get triggered. Lockbark said it is no surprise that David Pakman has proven to be a valuable, albeit unwitting asset, something many of us had already suspected. And this is absolutely who we, the types of people that we need to understand what their role in this political landscape is. It is to confuse people. It is to lie to people, and is to get people to believe that you, as an individual, because you disagree with X, Y, and Z, not only are you wrong, you are a bad person. You are a bad person because you think that. Let's take a little break. If you guys are enjoying the show, the party rages on 24/7 over in our Discord. The link is pinned to the top of the chat and is absolutely free to join 24/7. We're in there hanging out, having a great time. And guys, it is absolutely free. However, if you are a member of this channel here on YouTube, you can scroll right below that video and hit that join button. Starts at $2.99. There's a few different tiers, but $2.99 will get you in. It gets you members only live streams here on YouTube, all that other good stuff. But it opens up the full Discord server. So we've got the free chat that is open to anyone. Anybody can join and talk. But as you can see, that is just one of our channels. There's a bunch of different channels here, including our Disciple chat for members only, our Word of the Day watch party, where we're talking about all this stuff. And of course, we have the voice channel here, where we are hanging out at this moment. Shout out to everybody in the Discord server. Say hello and tell them to come and join. There you go, guys. Simple as that. See you there. And of course, remember that after party and all those other channels are for members only. But if you click that free link at the top of the chat before the stream is over, you get a day pass for all of that. You can hang out with us, and you do not have to cam up, as you saw. I mean, I usually cam up, but I was doing this. But you know, me and Indie Film were cammed up, but everybody else is just chilling. We're just hanging out. It is a great time. Come and join us.
You kind of get the direction I'm going. It's already necessarily kind of convoluted, and I think this applies to a lot.
Hey, it has never once been coffee in here.
Dilly dilly, dilly dilly, dilly dilly, dilly dilly,
Dilly dilly.
Of these positions. And is there a way for the left to overcome this? Probably. I'm not like the messaging guy, so I think there would be others better suited to kind of talk us through it. But there's these really natural, pithy principles or aphorisms that work very well for the right.
Black Lives Matter. I said, I don't think the termination in pregnancy is a red rat, but that's a diversionary tactic. So, two parts that I don't understand. If it's not murder, why is it not murder? And what do you mean by diversionary tactic?
Yeah, well, a lot of the time, the slogans that people use are certainly not exhaustive of the philosophical positions that they represent. And I do think that's true of everyone who uses them. I mean, slogans are necessary because, like you say, you need to be able to get your point across in a few seconds. Sometimes.
Well, let's not also forget that most people are not politicians or pundits. Most people have lives. Like, sometimes you guys will apologize that, oh, I missed the show. It's like, bro, I know that you guys have other stuff to do. I'm here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I will be here. But that's not like, I don't need you to, I mean, I would love if you were at every show, but I don't need you to put your life aside so that you can watch this show, specifically because we have the Discord server so that we can build our community even when I'm not live. But the, what the fuck was I just saying?
Who uses them. I mean, slogans are necessary.
Oh yeah, that people have lives. And so being able to articulate a message in a pithy way is a good thing. The fact that your ideas can be distilled down into something simple means that it will apply to many people, which is what politics is.
Because, like you say, you need to be able to get your point across in a few seconds, sometimes even just to indicate like what side you're on. But I do think that the left has engaged in this too to what seems to me maybe an equally successful degree. When
I would say more, but let's hear it.
I think about
would you rather have a trans kid or a dead kid?
Slogans like "My body, my choice" in the abortion debate. Again, crucially, that's not going to exhaust the philosophical position. And if you speak to a pro-lifer,
not only that, but that principle does not apply to anything except what they wanted to. He just brought up, oh, you're telling corporations what they can do? You're in favor of corporations being able to force you to inject experimental fluids into your body, but you're for the people. How dare we told the corporations what to do? And yes, I am in favor of it's your money, you should get to keep it. But see, the principles allow me to have that idea and also apply it to the real world. Something David Pakman is not very familiar with.
Going to exhaust the philosophical position. And if you speak to a pro-lifer and say, my body, my choice, they're going to come in and they're going to say, but it's not really your body, it's somebody else. But already they're kind of having to make these distinctions that you're going to be able to philosophically dispute, and you're into.
Gotcha. So he's saying that bringing that up is not about refuting the fact that abortion is murder. It's about creating space for that bullshit rationalization. Agreed.
But already they're kind of having to make these distinctions that you're going to be able to philosophically dispute, and you're into a conversation kind of.
What are the ones we missed? We had my body, my choice. We have a trans kid versus a dead kid. We have Black Lives Matter. What are these simple liberal things that David Pakman's there saying that the right wing, very easy to distill these down. There's more on the left. What are
make these distinctions that you're going to be able to philosophically dispute, and you're into a conversation kind of, in the same way that if a pro-lifer says abortion is murder is wrong, the pro-choicer is going to say, well, murder is defined in this way, and a fetus is this and that. And I do sort of see that happening, my body, my choice in the abortion case. I'm not sure about the taxation. You've got the sort of taxation is theft, which is a very powerful imagery, but
it is. It's not about the fact that it does meet you emotionally. It's about the fact that it's correct and accurate and also hits you emotionally. Whereas the left is just like, well, whatever, we can twist their emotions. It doesn't matter if it has anything to do with reality. We just want to get them to emotionally feel like they're bad if they don't support us.
You do have the imagery of if Bill Gates gave his money away, then you could lift X many people out of poverty and no one would starve or whatever. And of course, another that comes to mind is the Black Lives Matter movement, where that.
I forgot that you can't hear this one through.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen? I told you exactly what does happen.
Or whatever. And of course, another that comes to mind is the Black Lives Matter movement, where that very phrase itself became emblematic of one of the most significant movements in American politics within living memory. And of course, Black Lives Matter is not a philosophical position, exactly. It's representative of a movement and a quite sort of subtle, in many ways, and deep political philosophy that you could spend hours and hours digging into and discussing and defining.
And I remember the naivete I had when Black Lives Matter was really kicking up. And I was like, guys, just chill out. Why don't we just say Black Lives Matter too? Black Lives Matter also. That's all that they're trying to say. Because I thought that that's what all they were trying to say. Not take over the fucking country with Marxist bullshit. Part of my red pilling.
It's just a product of needing something that will fit onto a placard when you want to protest your grievances. And so it would be easy to
no kings
say, I think, well, the reason why the right are better at sloganing is because their positions
are better,
are less philosophically subtle. So they're easier to sort of condense into slogans.
And I would agree with that. We're not trying to use some great philosophical way to make an argument for X, Y, and Z. It's just like, these are basic rights. These are basic trends in nature, in community. It doesn't need to be some fantastically intelligent or intellectual thing, because it's not just for intellectual elites. It's for everyone.
I think you could make that case, but I'm not convinced that they are actually doing it more successfully than the left. But maybe I'm just wrong there. I'm not sure.
Nope. Spot on, Alex, as always.
Well, I don't think you're wrong in a general sense that, of course, there are both rebuttals and counter rebuttals to all of these kind of pithy phrases. I think my perspective as someone kind of living in it in the United States is that even when you say, okay, well, my body, my choice, and then all of a sudden someone says, well, but there's another body involved here.
Right. It means it's a bad slogan. What's the argument against the slogan "abortion is murder"? You need some bullshit rationalization.
I think that that's much more effective than the counter you had to the
Wait. What's more effective?
body, my choice. And then all of a sudden someone says, well, but there's another body involved here. I think that that's much more effective than the counter you had to the abortion is murder. And well, let's get into the definition of murder. Even
I mean, okay, I agree, but what's your point?
that, like, I just don't think that that's as salient. So I think this is a matter of degree. And then when you build a layer of fundraising on top of it, where the right is still very good at raising money on some of these ideas, the effect over decades is cumulative. You're not wrong in your critique. I think my experience in living in the space is that it's still tuned better and it's working significantly better for them. It's not.
Is it possibly that reality has a right-wing bias? Shout out to Matthew King. Welcome to the party. So the left is better at making catchy slogans. The right is better at making slogans based in reality that you can define and back up with logic. Well, damn. Hard to disagree with that. Welcome to the party, sir.
Is that it's still tuned better and it's working significantly better for them. It's not that there aren't rebuttals, but I think it's functioning better for them.
What do you think is the right's obsession with abortion in America? In that,
life.
In the UK, we have a pretty significant right-wing presence, especially as of late. Parties like Reform UK, really focusing in on the issue of immigration, which is like huge here. I think that's what Brexit was about. It was about immigration and basically nothing else. And so have been. Interestingly enough, I think the success of Labour has been due to the Conservative Party's failure on immigration, a bit like how you attribute the success of the right in many ways to the failures of the left. But if I saw Nigel Farage get up in Parliament,
right, it's almost like it's just simple. It's almost like you don't need to complicate it.
And give a speech about abortion and protecting the lives of the unborn, I would be genuinely surprised. I would think it sort of came out of nowhere. I'd be blindsided by it. There will be some Catholic society somewhere in Parliament that probably is like lobbying for abortion to probably not even be criminalized, because it feels like a kind of settled issue here. So it's not just the weirdness that debate.
Thank you for the likes, guys. We got 6 people here and 6 likes. That really, really does help. Thank you so much.
It hasn't been kind of settled in America, but the fact that in particular, it seems to be for many people like single issue voters, this is like their issue. And if it's not to do with the genuine philosophical principle that they just actually care for the lives of unborn children, what do you think it is? Maybe it is that, but I don't know.
Just maybe. I don't know. It's a crazy thought. But wait. What if people, like just generally, like people actually don't want to murder children? I know it's a crazy thought, but just maybe it's genuine.
No, what do you think?
I think for some people it is that. So I would say a couple of different things.
Right.
There's a degree to.
So, and then I will. Okay, some. How many? What? Give me a percentage of MAGA that actually cares about killing babies versus the other percentage that does whatever you are claiming that people are doing.
So, first of all, I've spent time in some of these more rural conservative communities, and if you live in a city, it can be hard to understand. But when I go to some of these communities, and consider the size of the United States and how isolated some of these communities are, there's basically 2 activities in a lot of these communities. There's evangelical churches and there's gun shooting ranges.
That's it. There's no bars. There's no Dave and Buster's. You can't get together with family. It's just churches and shooting ranges. I mean, this would be a great moment for have you been? Because that's not true. You might see a higher frequency of evangelical churches and gun shooting ranges. But to act as if there's nothing to do but those 2 things borders on, I mean, it's racism is not but like classism, I don't know. statism, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But like, yikes, bro. Yikes.
There's evangelical, that some of these communities are. There's basically two activities in a lot of these communities.
Just two.
There's evangelical churches and there's gun shooting ranges. The politics of the area follows directly from that, or maybe it's that the presence of churches and gun ranges follows from the politics, but there's a
they don't like Topgolf, they don't like Chili's, just guns and church.
Feedback loop where what you're seeing is people who spend a lot of time in two places: evangelical churches, where the teachings are that abortion is murder, and gun ranges, which are going to be hampered by gun safety legislation. And so this leads to a feedback loop where a lot of money is raised by candidates and organizations that say, we will oppose abortion and we will oppose gun safety regulation.
All right. How many of you, put a one in the chat if you are in one of these southern states that he would call southern, and talk to me about how accurate or inaccurate he is. Because, hey, I'm Jersey born and raised. So I'm East Coast. I'm, that's not my vibe. So seems kind of reductive to say, well, there's just churches and gun ranges, but maybe I'm wrong. And he said, I'm willing to accept some abortion. I do not like that it's currently being used as a birth control. There needs to be a limit somewhere. If the baby can live without the mother, that is murder. Yep. And yeah, every town I've been to has at least one bar for every church. Shout out to Central PA. DJ said, false evangelical churches attendance is dropping. The ortho bros had their day, but their day in the sun is ending.
By candidates and organizations that say, we will oppose abortion and we will oppose gun safety regulations.
I actually want numbers on that. I really want to see the number, like what was the uptick that we saw, and like what how is that playing out? Because I mean, I know without even looking at the numbers, I know that we were on a strong decline, and then there's been a little bit of an uptick in response to wokeness, and specifically also the ortho bros, but more so in general, just wokeness. And you have things like Joe Rogan going to Texas and starting going to church and all these kinds of things. I definitely see the uptick, but that's all it is. That's all it is.
Candidates and organizations that say, we will oppose abortion and we will oppose gun safety regulations. Now, how much of it is the sort of tail wagging the dog? How much of it is the people genuinely saying this is what matters and therefore it's reflected? I don't know. I think there's a sort of circular nature to it, but in a sense, it's logical that if that's your environment, those are going to be your big issues. There's another difference with the UK, certainly France and Spain, which is in the US, both because of the size.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just talking about like church attendance in general.
Of the country and the population of the country and the wealth of the country, you can raise more than enough money to do almost anything around those issues. Being against abortion as a primary issue in many congressional districts is enough.
We're going to take a little side quest. I followed up with ChatGPT here to see if we could get something a little bit simpler on what is actually going on in...
President Trump just announcing a ceasefire between Israel and Iran that he says he hopes will become permanent. So here's what he said on social media just a short time ago. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. That is what he wrote on social media. Let's check in now with Fox's Caroline Elliott, who has been covering this for us today. Actually, you know what? Let me give you a little bit of context here, a little bit of background. It was this afternoon around noon our time when we saw Iran launch a retaliatory strike against the U.S. airbase in Qatar. The base had been evacuated, air defense systems were activated, and there were no reports of any injuries or significant damage. And so if you'll remember, this is now 2 days after U.S. airstrikes crippled Iran's nuclear sites. And so the world has been waiting now to hear what is President Trump going to do next. So again, he's declared the ceasefire. Let's check in now with Fox's Caroline Elliott. So Caroline, all of this happening here just within the last 30 minutes or so. I know you're probably scrambling to get some information, but last we heard, the president goes into the Situation Room and we're all waiting to hear what his next move in is. And then there's this.
Yeah, Amy, right now we're still checking in with law enforcement sources, but we have to imagine that this ceasefire deal is certainly a step in the right direction, but again, doesn't take away from these serious warnings from the DHS in the last 2 days. We know that officials in New York, LA, DC, and Miami are all, again, tracing this.
I mean, I don't know if we're there yet.
Situation closely in Iran and increasing security at religious sites across the cities. Right now, we're hearing from NYPD that, again, looking at the situation on the ground in Iran closely and placing additional resources outside some of those religious sites or soft targets like churches and synagogues that could be vulnerable to an attack. Amy?
Yeah, because we talk about the sleeper cells and that sort of attack. Also, obviously, the troops overseas. There are a couple of different places here where there's a lot of concern by Americans about safety, even though it looks as though things, according to President Trump, have moved in a positive direction. To his point, will this stick?
Yeah, only time will tell. Amy, we will tell you, though, in the last couple of hours, we did hear.
Yeah, so it's
from the Department of Homeland.
We got to take this shit as it comes, but that is a good sign. And then what we were just talking about, I finished. I want to ask here, and I said there's been a long-term decline in long-term decline in religiosity in America, right? It seems like there's been an uptick, but not a long-term resurgence. Do you have numbers on this? So, long-term data shows that religiosity in the U.S. has declined over the past few decades, with signs of stabilization, but no broad resurgence into traditional religious identity. So, long-term trends: Christian identification dropped from about 78% in 2007 to 62% this year. Confirms the similar slide. 84 in the early 2000s, the 69. And the nuns are still the biggest the biggest group. So let's just see what the bottom line here. So is there an uptick? Not in the long-term secular trends, no. Widespread resurgence in traditional religious identity. However, recent small rebounds among youth, especially Gen Z men post-pandemic, have been noted, with some stabilizing or increasing weekly service attendance. So what do we got here? So we're looking at Christian affiliation. We just went over the numbers. The nuns went from 16 to 29%. Praying daily from is pretty. Oh, so I guess they didn't have those numbers. But Christians, your time is running out. I've been telling you. Indeed, it is a lot of nuns. All right, where were we?
To do almost anything around.
Oh, I want to get back to this. Matthew said the church, TM, does not have the political pull it did in the past. They're just blaming common sense reform on Bible thumpers. I would agree with that. And, you know, to some extent, I may be guilty of that. I don't feel that I am. I think when I have issues with Christianity, that they are the actual issues that I'm talking about. But hey, been wrong before, and I'm going to be wrong again.
Is more than enough money to do almost anything around those issues. Being against abortion as a primary issue in many congressional districts
makes you a bad person.
Is enough to raise all the money you need to run a successful campaign.
It's almost like people care about murdering children.
I don't want to speak for other countries necessarily, but my impression, having spent time in a lot of these countries, is you wouldn't even get the buy-in from the population if that's what you were offering. I will go and I will.
So what you're saying is that America is the best fucking country that cares about children.
Will oppose every attempt to legalize the murder of babies. I just don't think it would be, it would interest enough people in a lot of these countries, based, as you say, on how shocked you would be if Nigel Farage gave such a speech.
Is that xenophobia? Is that xenophobia? Well, in America, obviously, we care about murdering babies, but you go to another country and they're just not going to care. They're just not going to care that you want to murder babies. Only Americans care this much about murdering babies. I don't think that's the message that you want to put out there, brother.
So I don't know if I'm directly answering which is the cause and which is the result, but this is sort of like the circular nature of why this persists. I will mention one other thing. We recently had Roe v. Wade overturned by the Supreme Court, this 70s era law that guaranteed access to abortion services, at least in some situations. This has been a major emboldening of the movement, where now all of a sudden many of them are saying, wow, we could go even further. And this has reinvigorated fundraising around the issue as well. The idea that we could actually do a lot more here.
Do you think that, given how important this is for many voters, and like I say, single issue voters, for a lot of them it is abortion. Do you think that success for the left
Who's Nick Land?
will require either being more ambiguous or a little less liberal about abortion in particular?
Good question. And so essentially the question is like, look, you're saying that there's a bunch of these religious people where that is their entire thing. So is it worth it for your party, if you see it as not as strongly as they do? Maybe don't be so liberal on this issue. Maybe don't die on that hill.
You think that success for the left will require either being more ambiguous or a little less liberal about abortion in particular?
Uh-huh.
So if you had asked me about the gun safety issue, my answer would be a little different. So let me take abortion first, and then I'll analogize to the gun safety issue. The abortion situation is tough in terms of strategy, because in the immediate aftermath of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, there were these off-year elections in the United States. The timing wasn't such that the presidential election was right after the overturning of Roe v. Wade, so I think there was more distance. It had less of an impact. But there were both state referenda on enshrining rights to abortion services and some off-year and special elections shortly after the overturning of Roe v. Wade. They were swept by the pro-choice left and by let's enshrine abortion rights. And polling defends and supports the idea that Americans overwhelmingly believe that at least in some, if not most cases, abortion should be legal. So,
which is why nobody decided to enshrine it into law instead of just having precedent for 50 years.
Stupid.
there's an asymmetry here between.
And again, I will say that I do think maybe it's a necessary speed bump, but I do think in the short term we are perhaps already have seen more babies die because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And while there are states that are had the what they call it, not the red flag laws, but they kick in immediately and no abortion at all. Ectopic pregnancies, of course, do not count because that would not be an abortion. But all the other states were like, hey, go crazy. New York, 9 months. California, 9 months. Colorado, 9 months. Let's go. And so I think there needs to be something that there needs to be a push to figure out what exactly is the law going to be federally, because it ain't looking good. I like that, and the ruling was it's a state issue, but I just don't see how that is manageable. Tim Pool always uses the example of a guy or a family, or rather a couple living in Texas, and she gets pregnant and she doesn't want the baby, but he wants to keep the baby. And she gets in her car and she zooms off to the next state where it's legal. And he calls it in. It was like, hey, my girlfriend is trying to murder my baby. She's on her way to a different state right now. And so the Texas law enforcement is chasing after her, trying to do that. But she's in the other state and she crosses the state line. Now we got Texas police versus what? I think Arizona has it, but let's just say Arizona has all these abortion allowances. Then what happens when these two law enforcement agencies meet each other and one is like, no, we are chasing this person who is actively committing a murder. And then the other's like, well, that's not how we see it here. Not sustainable. Tyka said, why is it a talking point? Genghis Khan was a mass baby murderer. Why not bring him into the discussion? I mean, bring him in, make your point. Hey, shout out to the true disciple, Avery Ozzy, 1998. Welcome to the party. You can become a true disciple as well, signing up as a member. What does Avery say? People want to say cops are killing the black community, but abortion clinics have killed over 19 million unborn black children since the 70s. Yup. there are more black children aborted in at least in New York City. There's more every year. There's more children aborted than are born. Fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the statistic. Avery said, I think the number is near 40 million for America as a whole.
Haram!
That's not okay. That's not okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party, sir. Titan said, none of these dweebs have ever inseminated a sock, never mind a woman. I mean, I don't know. I would guess. Honestly, I would guess that both of them get play. I've been in the presence of Alex. He's tall. He's got the accent. I've seen the women flock to him. But, you know, left-wing women, they're loose. And David says what he likes them to say. So they probably both get in play.
If not most cases, abortion should be legal. So there's an asymmetry here between the people who really care about this are willing to donate a lot of money, much more than would be financially advisable if we were looking at sort of their budgets. But at the same time, by sheer numbers, Americans actually do support that. So on that one, I don't think that the left has to moderate.
Are you going to source anything there, or you're just saying things?
The gun issue is a little different, and I've had some disagreements with elected officials recently. Every shred of evidence I've seen is that at the national level, it doesn't make sense for Democrats to run on passing gun safety laws. Laws I defend, laws...
Of course you do. Of course you do. But, you know, I don't want to say what I actually think because, you know, then I might not get as many views.
Most sane countries have. Because what seems to happen is it doesn't bring out anyone new to support you. And it can really work to generate donations for the opposition and to bring out voters that are coming out specifically to vote to prevent some of those laws from passing. So I think even though you asked about it as applied to abortion, I think when it comes to gun safety, I've not seen evidence that it makes sense to include that in a serious manner in national political platforms, which I find...
I don't think that's what he said. I think he was... you were talking about single issue voters. And there are many single issue voters where their single issue is abortion. And then separately, there's many single issue voters where their single issue is guns. I don't think he was saying they're the same thing.
Finds regrettable on a personal level, but strategically accurate.
Do you think that it produces any kind of conflict of principles? Because there's sort of a level to this where you want to say, okay, let's be strategic. You know, we want gun reform, but it's not going to get us elected, so let's not run on that and sort of problem solved. There's another sense in which you say that, like,
solved.
You know, people are dying.
That's I love that Alex said it that way, because that is how they would think about it. That, well, we won, so problem solved. It doesn't matter if people have guns. It doesn't matter if people are getting aborted. As long as we win, that's all that really matters.
Okay, let's be strategic. You know, we want gun reform, but it's not going to get us elected, so let's not run on that and sort of problem solved. There's another sense in which you say that, like, you know, people are dying and our gun laws are in need of desperate reform.
Yep.
But to get elected, we kind of need to not focus on that. Do you think that a decision like that, a kind of...
Oh, I meant reformed in terms of getting rid of laws.
Strategic thinking on issues that are as morally charged as abortion and gun control are something that we should do? Because some people will say that the very criticism we make of the MAGA movement is that, you know, they say they've got moral principles, but as soon as it's electorally disadvantageous to hold those principles, they just throw them to the wind.
Yep, the same thing that you were accusing Republicans of doing, solely Republicans doing at the very beginning of this conversation. I said, if a man has never impregnated a woman, he will not be able to take a proper stand on the matter. Disagree! You don't have to murder somebody or you don't have to create somebody to know that murder is wrong. What do I need to know? I mean, I've busted at a woman before. I was scared that she might have been pregnant. Does that count? Is that enough of an experience for me to understand that murder is wrong? Or do I need to actually impregnate a woman to know that murder is wrong?
But as soon as it's electorally disadvantageous to hold those principles, they just throw them to the wind. Is there a risk of doing the same thing when we start thinking, okay, abortion is really important, guns are really important, but what we need to think about here is how to get elected? Because to me, that seems like a legitimate move, but you can see why that would make some people a little sort of suspicious of the principles underlying the left-wing movement.
Yeah, but they're already on the left and they already don't hold these principles and they already think of this as a game. So you would be right, Alex, but these people are already way far beyond that. Shout out to Equality and Deference because vagina. Welcome to the party over on Rumble. Said liked and shared. Again, guys, that stuff helps the channel so very much. Even if you don't think anybody's going to click on the link, just share the video wherever you can. Just by you telling YouTube, I want more people to see this. They will show it to more people. Thank you. All I said is this guy the guy who invented Pakman? No. I would love to have a conversation with that guy. But that ain't it. Welcome to the party.
A little sort of suspicious of the principles underlying the left-wing movement.
Yeah,
you would, but they already play this game, so no.
I would love to talk to those folks, and what I would say to them is, number one, there's a difference between not campaigning on something and abandoning it as a principle, first and foremost. In order to pass legislation, you have to be in power. In order to be in power, you have to win elections. So
it's a game.
Why would you run a campaign likely to prevent winning an election, getting in power, and being able to pass legislation? Now, this is not theoretical. Joe Biden did not really run on gun safety regulations.
He didn't really run on anything except Orange Man Bad.
Democrats in 2020 did not really run on that either. But when Joe Biden became president, there were some strengthenings of gun safety regulations that were passed at the federal level, and they included the ability to take guns from people in certain legal or medical situations, red flag laws, etc.
Boo, red flag laws, boo.
It's a perfect example of how we know the principles that these folks believe. They didn't campaign on them, but as soon as they got power, they did do something about it. I wish more could have been done. The counterpoint is, you look after the Sandy Hook shooting that happened in Connecticut in the United States, I believe it was in 2012. After that happened, something like 88 or 90% of the country said, we want universal background checks. Not to make this all about background checks, but there are sort of loopholes at the state level and federally that interact.
Can you articulate what those loopholes are? Probably not.
Act in a way where if I sell you a firearm personally, we can circumvent the need for a background check. Anyway,
How true is that? How true is that? Because I mean, I saw the Always Sunny episode where they were like, it's so easy, and we just go to, and they were trying to find a gun, and they went to a gun show and they couldn't get it. How legitimate is that notion of the gun show loophole? I feel like it's bullshit, but I don't know any better. So I ask you, what is good with the gun show loophole? Quality said gun safety is using both hands, right? I mean, that's a start. Matthew said, I actually agree with red flag laws if you can promise me it won't be abused. And therein lies the issue. Anything that the government can abuse will be abused.
You a firearm personally, we can circumvent the need for a background check. Anyway, overwhelming support for this. And nothing was done legislatively at a time where there was arguably kind of more political will than ever, because Republicans were able to stand in the way because Democrats simply didn't have the numbers. So I think if we look pragmatically and empirically at this, not campaigning on something is not abandoning it as a principle, and you won't be able to achieve anything unless you actually get yourself elected. So I have no moral issue with saying don't campaign on it.
Do you think there is a sort of element of deception involved
with the left and everything that they do? Yes.
In intentionally suppressing something that you care about, not abandoning it as a principle, but intentionally kind of, we're not going to mention that until we get in power, and then we're going to see what we can do about it, knowing full well that if you had campaigned on that, you might not have gotten elected. It sounds, if you describe it in those terms,
it sounds like lying.
Sounds a little bit sort of morally suspicious, if you know what I mean.
No, I mean, listen, of course, on some
okay, say more.
Official level, you're correct, which is if I believe 15 things and I only talk about 12 of them on the campaign, there's a degree to which I'm hiding certain aspects of myself. I would argue everyone who goes for a job interview does the exact same thing. Everyone who goes on a first date does the exact same thing.
Right. So how is this relevant to anything? This is a very common thing. If you want to connect it to what politicians do and don't like that, then sure. But yeah, okay. Quality said, you can buy a gun from another guy who happens to be there to sell his personal weapon. No paperwork needed. I've done both. Vendors at the gun show have paperwork. Okay, well, it's a loophole. It's a loophole. Shout out to Richard Hardy. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. Hey, chill on the hate for my boy. That's my boy right there. And certainly, you are, I mean, ladies, weigh in here. If you had to pick one, just based on looks, who's more masculine? Well, he's got the mustache.
Job interview does the exact same thing.
Matthew says, most booths at gun shows are dealers, and a dealer cannot legally sell guns without background checks. They can technically sell a personal rifle to another adult without one, but nobody is willing to. I wonder why. It's almost like that's not a smart thing to do.
Of myself, I would argue everyone who goes for a job interview does the exact same thing. Everyone who goes on a first date does the exact same thing.
So it's not that I have a principle that this is wrong. It's just in this particular situation, I don't like it. Therefore, it's only wrong in this situation. No principles, just positions.
Everyone who's parenting is choosing to downplay certain traits in front of their kids. I think for me, I'm not sure that this is about some general principle. I mean, the counter to what you're saying.
For you, no, it's not.
Is what? Everything you believe should be given proportional public display in every campaign, and everything short of that is dishonest. I think the more...
That's your position. And it's a position that, like, if you don't talk about all of the everything, then you're hiding things. That's your position. Nobody has brought that up except you.
In every campaign, and everything short of that is dishonest. I think the more interesting question would be to ask voters and say, hey, here are the 15 views of this candidate. We've identified that these 3 are disadvantageous to play up.
According to who? Are we basing what we support on what is popular, or are we basing what we want based on principles? I thought that we were supposed to represent our principles. So that's what I've been doing. But I think some people are just playing a game, winning points. Basically says, hide your beliefs until you get power, then do what you want, whether your constituents want to or not. Yep. Win the game by any means necessary.
Do you have a problem with just focusing on the other 12? I think most voters would say, no, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Then what are you talking about, dude?
I think the point you're bringing up is a great one, but I think in practice, this is not the sort of moral quandary that maybe it would seem to be.
Yeah, no, I certainly don't think it is either. Although what I do think it does is potentially it raises like an implicit criticism of democracy. I'm interested to what extent you trust the intelligence and functional ability of...
So he can go 2 ways here. He can be like, well, ever since Trump got in, he destroyed everything. Or he can be like, well, of course, we've got to trust the experts
of the US.
Something tells me he's going to find a way to do neither of those and do something slimy. Well, let's see.
Electorate to make intelligent decisions, because a lot of the time the criticisms people make are things like, he didn't win the popular vote and so shouldn't have been elected, or
Donald Trump won the popular vote.
The real problem here is the misinformation campaign. And if we had a sort of perfect democracy where information was correctly administered and voting was fairly operated.
If things were different, then they would be different. If things are different, then I would be right.
Everything would be okay. But there does seem to me to remain this extent to which, like, you would still need to be strategic about essentially like psychologizing people and going like, are we going to turn them off with the abortion thing, even though we really care about? And so I think what might be lurking under there is like an implicit mistrust in democracy as like a principle for getting the best form of government. Because
there you go. You heard it from Alex O'Connor. The Democrats are not in favor of democracy.
A lot of people, they will happily admit that democracy is very ineffective. It prevents things from getting done.
Mob rule.
But the purpose of democracy is not because it's the best form of government that works the best, but because it's the fairest, because you have a right to
That's why we have a constitutional republic, because of that. It's even more fair.
representation in parliament. Others will say, however, that actually the reason we choose democracy over authoritarianism or oligarchy is because it is actually better. Like, what's your grasp on the success of democracy in America?
Well, you bring up a lot of interesting points.
Put a 1 in the chat if you think he will not bring up the phrase constitutional republic, because anybody on the right will be, well, Alex, just so you know, yes, democracy is a big part of our political system, but at the end of the day, it is not a straight democracy. It's a constitutional republic.
Points there. I mean, I think, let me get to the bigger point in a second. To briefly say, I mean, listen, more than half of the people who voted in November voted for someone other than Donald Trump. Donald Trump won with a plurality of the vote. Is that
Yep, that's how that works.
Unfair? It's the system we have, and he won fair and square based on that system. It is also
Okay, was it unfair that Joe Biden won with an extra 80 million votes? Let's even put that to the side. He won with a plurality of the votes, not a majority, not an overwhelming majority.
unfair. It's the system we have, and he won fair and square based on that system. It is also the case that
3 times.
I'm against the Electoral College. I would prefer a national popular vote, but that's not the system we have. So there's no
You want to stick with this? He said he wants a national popular vote.
reason to deny that
That means he wants everybody's vote to be counted exactly the same, straight to the issue.
I would prefer a national popular vote, but that's not the system we have. So there's no reason to deny that he became president the way the rules are. I would like to see it organized differently. To your first,
And I think, there's a lot of people in that same position that matters more than anything else.
and bigger question of, do I trust I don't know if you use the word intelligence, but maybe you did, of the electorate? No, not really. And
As I said from the beginning, David Pakman thinks you are stupid.
as Plato said, there is some degree to which in democracy you eventually get the lack of intelligence of the electorate leading to exactly what we've seen in the United States. Now, I think the critique of this has to involve a lot of different sort of theaters, for lack of a better term. Education is a part of this. And there are state boards of education all over the country that have eliminated critical thinking and media literacy from curricula. I think it's something kids should start learning probably at age 7. In Finland, they do. They're very good at this. I've seen documentaries about Finnish critical thinking and media literacy classes, and kids can understand this stuff if it's taught to them. And if they're
What is this stuff that we're talking about? Sounds like you're referring to CRT, but
treated like individuals who can handle this material. My belief is, if you tell someone, hey, if you cut taxes for the rich, it'll benefit everybody, there's a degree to which you're going to fall for that if you are less able.
That's a good point. Removing the Electoral College would remove blue cities from dominating. Pakman is a moron.
Stupid.
I mean, what more is there to say?
To think for yourself and evaluate claims and sort of understand the basic.
Yeah, the nookie. Yeah, take something about a cookie and stick it up your
building blocks of epistemology. So I think that is.
All right, what the fuck did you say?
If you are less able to think for yourself and
MAGA,
evaluate claims and sort of understand the basic building blocks of epistemology. So I think that is one kind of layer of the problem. There's also, many have predicted that even relatively intelligent populations sooner or later fall for a charismatic strongman, right? We've seen that.
Okay, I want you to put in the chat how many seconds of, because I might pause. So we're at 42:53. How many seconds before he brings up Hitler? The charismatic strongman. How many seconds do you think it's going to take him? Not counting my pauses and my things to bring up. Just like Hitler. Just like Hitler. Quality said, what's Ty talking about? I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. I'm not really sure. libido or distrudo. I don't even know what that word means. All right, Matthew says 9 seconds. 9 seconds. All right, we're at 42:53. I'm gonna back it up with the 5.
Relations sooner or later fall for a charismatic strongman.
All right.
Right. We've seen that in the 20th century, and I think it certainly applies to Donald Trump. So is there
half counts? I think he still might get there, but that was obviously a Hitler reference.
Something above my pay grade from sociology or psychology that explains why there's a tendency to like or fall for that? Maybe there is. But to your broader point, I can't tell you that I'm honestly super impressed with the voting public's ability to evaluate the promises and positions of political candidates and rationally decide. I'm kind of shouting into the void when I say it. And a lot of people would say, no, people decided.
Indeed, you are into the void of your bots. Shout out to King Jiffy Codes. Welcome to the party. I was just scrolling through YouTube before the stream start, and I'm always complaining about how we never get to see smaller channels like mine and others on the homepage. And of course, we saw our boy King Jiffy Coates. And he was streaming, had a couple people there, but this is his channel here, guys. I'm going to put it in the chat. You guys should definitely go give him a follow. I like this vibe. I don't fully know. I had to go live, so I didn't get to catch too much of it. But if you like my energy, you will like his energy. Definitely go check that out. The channel is right there. Welcome to the party. All right, dive it back in.
Rationally decide. I'm kind of shouting into the void when I say it. And a lot of people would say, no, people decided based on how they perceived these messages should be interpreted. And you can't fault them for that. Okay, but my personal opinion is, no, I'm skeptical of the ability of the electorate to rationally and intelligently decide.
You talked about media.
I mean, you may have been right. I don't know. 5 seconds was about on point. From the charismatic leader to it's Hitler. Like, God, bro, like, Jesus Christ. Can you be any more vanilla? He's just so vanilla. Why?
Of the ability of the electorate to rationally and intelligently decide.
You talked about media literacy amongst young people and critical thinking as a means to approaching what we're seeing on social media and in television and stuff. You write in your book about your own relationship with the news media, only engaging with the news, only looking at it like on days when you're producing the show and otherwise trying to completely avoid it.
If you're a newscaster, and I was talking about this channel is not about newscasting. I'm not breaking news to you guys. I'm taking these conversations and breaking them down and so on and so forth. I said, what does vanilla mean? Not just like plain. He's just very like plain. Like he's just nothing to him. What the fuck was I saying? What the fuck did I just say?
With the news, only looking at it like on days when you're producing the show and other.
Oh yeah, that should not be a thing. Like it kind of is your responsibility to keep up with the news. It makes a lot more sense why all of his takes are fucking stupid because he doesn't even listen to the news. Some days I'll feel bad because I started posting on TikTok and none of you guys really care about stuff that I'm watching. So, I wanted a place to talk about that stuff. I watched Sopranos for the first time and then I was comparing it a lot to Breaking Bad and stuff. So I just rewatched Breaking Bad. Now I'm into Better Call Saul, all that stuff. And you guys don't give a shit about that. So I'm posting over there and it's like, even at where it's not even a platform that I'm trying to grow. They're still like, okay, I decided I'm going to talk about this. Fuck was that? And I'm going to talk about this. You're not even watching the news unless you're streaming? I said, I'm not going to dumb myself down for anyone. Life Drive is libido. Delph Drive is distrudo. Yet 3 behind me, Mr. Psychology BS. It is indeed a bachelor. So, hey, Denim's Better Call Saul. Oh my God. Put one in the chat. If you are not, I feel like you guys want to know. I was just talking about you guys should follow Willie Mack because of the quote unquote drama that's going on. But I don't know if you saw that Ethan Klein put out that content nuke where he was talking about how anti-Semitic Hassan and all his orbiters were, but he specifically dropped that video so that they would react to it and not use fair use. And now he's suing them all. Better Call Saul is goddamn right. I mean, you know, we have our disagreements. We have our disagreements with H3, but perfect move. And I mean, hey, if it's Hassan versus Ethan, I'm going Ethan all day. Absolutely. Yep. And that's the thing. Like over here, they don't really, they're gonna be like, I don't care about this drama, but like that's shit's going down. I'm hoping it gets a little bit more serious, because then they'll care. Yep. Okay. You guys know what's good. All right. Maybe we'll check out some of that shit. Maybe we'll check about that shit. Word up. So DJ Isolated said, I'm skeptical of the blue bloc electorate to do what I want. Damn, Democrats aren't voting communistic enough for him. Is that surprising? Not to me. I think that if your channel is based on news and current events, you should probably keep tabs on it daily and investigate what you hear before the show goes live. And like, that's why I am very, very much upfront about the fact that I'm not this guy. I don't want to do that. So I'm not going to do that. But I'm not going to pretend that I have done that. And so many of the things that we've talked about where I didn't know, I'm not trying to pretend. It's just like, yo, I don't really know what's good about this, but other people are talking about it. Let's break down that conversation and determine who we can trust at least is being honest. Because everyone who is honest can also be wrong. But at least if we take out the people who are not being honest, we're in a much better position. But we're in the chat if you do not know who Frogan is, because that is worth a side quest. Well, I'll bring up a picture of it. You said Ethan is using his Jewish superpower of living. Bro, come on. All right. I'll give you the dilly on that. But also, yeah, right? Again, I only do this when I have to, but I'm a serious political commentator. Probably not. But if you haven't watched the any Tech Tone, give him a shot. Super good show. I'm pretty new to his channel, but I like it for slap coverage. There was another channel, More Pegasus, where I was kind of like, you know, Willie Mack is kind of the top tier of covering the left wing Destiny Hassan, you know, that space. He's got it on lock. And I was watching this More Pegasus channel, but now as this Denims and H3 and all that stuff's kicking up, I'm like, all right, maybe I want to be a little bit more and you know, see what's good, sip the tea, you know what I mean? All right, let's dive back in here.
What we're seeing on social media and in television and stuff. You write in your book about your own relationship with the news media, only engaging with the news, only looking at it like on days when you're producing the show and otherwise trying to completely avoid it. Some people say, I don't read the news at all because it depresses me and gets on my nerves. Other people say, that's irresponsible. You need to be aware of what's going on in the world.
Oh, I've seen this guy before. The VTuber. I've seen him before. Word up.
What do you think is a healthy and advisable, but also, you know, morally upright?
That's, and again, sorry we're gonna keep this moving, but that is why I suggested that. I don't know if you guys saw the community tab post, but because of the fact that I know that, like, when it comes to I was comparing it to stuff like with Candace or Brett Cooper leaving the Daily Wire, the drama between Steven Crowder, and we as a community seem to care enough about that, but not necessarily enough to get into the left wing drama. And, you know, like, and whatever. So Willie Mack is the way. Nuxanor. There we go. Nuxanor. All right. Word up. Followed and subbed. We'll see if this turns into something. All right. Diving back in. What are we talking about?
People say that's irresponsible. You need to be aware of what's going on in the world. What do you think is a healthy and advisable, but also, you know, morally upright relationship that a person should have to the news media and information generally about the world?
Well, I don't know. I just say whatever makes me money.
Well, this is a big discussion, and right now there are so many authors that tackle this. If you look at any books right now, if you look at self-help books, if you look at productivity books, if you look at time management books, this idea of what is it fundamentally virtuous to pay attention to the news? It's become a very big topic generally. I think the question I immediately have when people say, "Is it the right thing? Is it the correct thing?"
Shout out to Equality of Deference. I cannot say that on YouTube. We are live on Rumble if you ever need to go see what's good.
To be informed about what's going on around the world and in my country. My question is always, well, what is your goal? What is the point of being informed? Certainly, if your goal is, well, I want to be
a better society,
aware of every problem so that I can try to fix it or improve it. We're not going to be able to do that, right? There's just sort of some reality where, as I read now about the border skirmishes and conflicts and growing tension between Pakistan and India in the region of Kashmir, I don't think there's a damn thing I'm ever going to do that is going to directly impact whether that becomes a nuclear showdown or not. I just don't think it's going to be the case. You look at Russia and Ukraine. Well, my government in the United States is certainly more involved there. And there is plausibly some degree to which, depending on whether there is consent manufactured for supporting Ukraine or not, it might more directly touch American policy. You then go to the potholes on my street, and I think we can see how I can much more directly have an impact on that by kind of focusing on my immediate community. So
he sees a pothole in the street, and he decides, okay, this is a solvable problem. Let's spend money on this. But the way that he would do it is to create a groundswell of people who are against potholes and a bureaucracy of people who are going to maintain that. I don't know. He's good at making it sound like a good idea. But every time they have these good ideas, the only way it ever plays out is eroding our fucking culture.
How I can much more directly have an impact on that by kind of focusing on my immediate community. So,
and I mean, not to say that focusing on local politics isn't a generally good thing, but it's Dave Pakman.
Where I've come down on this after doing this for so long is it's overwhelming, exhausting, and demoralizing to be paying attention to everything all the time when in practice, we're not going to have a direct effect on most of it.
So I'm just going to stop trying, but not stop talking as long as you keep giving me money.
Is there virtue or value in being generally aware about what's going on in the world in a sort of healthy way? I think there is. Once you get beyond...
He is born. That's what I'm here for.
And I want to affect or fix every one of these situations. I do think even to understand the communities around us, there's value in things to be gained from understanding conflicts around the world or scholarship from around the world or conversation. So I think it's about finding balance is the point. I do know people personally who are...
I just saw him post a video about what was it? Let's see. It was... He just posted it. I'm destroying my channel. I was half paying attention, so I don't even really know what he was saying. But I'm not a huge fan of him. I also found him kind of just bland and boring. But at least he's got some better ideas than David.
About finding balance is the point. I do know people personally.
We need to find balance, and balance means transing the kids
who are obsessed in an unhealthy way with the 24-hour news networks and following everything. And they do strike me as depressed. They do sort of live in the news rather than in their communities. And I just don't think anybody really benefits from that. The people you're hearing about don't benefit. I don't think you benefit. I don't think your community benefits. So
if I could just have a show where I say whatever the fuck I want without having to pay attention, I certainly don't benefit from actually knowing what's going on. Shout out to King Nirvana. Welcome to the party. Who got pizza? I want pizza. I could go for a pizza tonight, bro. Should I order a pizza? I'm about to order a pizza.
Really benefits from that. The people you're hearing about don't benefit. I don't think you benefit. I don't think your community benefits. So I think that goes too far. I do believe that this is an issue of balance. For me, it's...
For me?
Domestic politics mostly, economics, right? I've sort of picked out some areas that are of most relevance to me: media analysis and critique, mostly focus on the United States, where I live, but also with some of our allies. That's how I've kind of decided, and no news on the weekends, and that works.
No news on the weekends. 3.5 million subscribers, and he doesn't watch any news on the weekend. Maybe this is not for you. I need to see what Alex, how Alex responds to this. This is I don't really care much about watching the news. I just have a 3 million subscriber channel where I fucking, it's a good thing I'm fucking Caribbean, right?
Works for me.
Right. Speaking of interaction with news media, we have a new pope, apparently, which is why my eyes were just darting down at my phone as people were texting me to let me know.
Again, this is from May.
We're currently waiting to see him walk out onto the balcony. Might be something to keep your eye on once we finish up recording. But
Yeah.
that's demonstrative of the very problem you were talking about, which is that I cannot keep my eye off the news. Although, for my line of work, I suppose this is quite an important moment. I am interested in, as we wait for this, this pope to walk out onto the balcony, who will. A lot of people are talking about the kind of politics of the new pope. We've had a, broadly speaking, progressive pope. Are we going to see a return to traditionalism? Are we going to see someone carry on his legacy because he appointed like 80% of the cardinals or whatever?
Yep. King Jeffy on point. You don't have to watch the news when you're progressive. You just have to keep the cult happy. What else do you need to say? Shout out to Country Boy over on Rumble. So I just had to reset my Rumble account for that joke. I was hoping it was something really dark. Well, I don't know what it was, but I'm here for it. Welcome to the party. Equality said his millions of subscribers use his voice as soporific. What does soporific mean? Stupid. Sorry.
We're going to see someone carry on his legacy because he appointed like 80% of the cardinals or whatever. What do you think is the relevance of religious belief in American politics?
Okay, all right. I'm letting you guys know. I don't know what's coming. I have not watched any more of this, so I don't know what's coming. But you guys know I'm a non-believer, and we know that Alex is a based atheist. That being said, I think all three people here are going to be against religious influence in politics, but let me not get ahead of myself. Just warning you.
Right. Because a lot of people talk about like Christian nationalism, and a lot of Americans are Christian, and they talk about Christian principles, and Donald Trump thinks that he was saved by God when that guy tried to shoot him and stuff. But there's also an extent to which people are very cynical about this and say, well, when Donald Trump was asked to name his favorite Bible verse, and he said,
Corinthians 2. Come on, bro.
Oh, it's just too personal a question. And
no, he eventually answered and said Corinthians 2.
I always liked it.
I think most of you understand why that's funny, but in case you don't, it's 2 Corinthians. And every Christian ever would know that.
It's one of my favorite moments. They then ask, well, are you more of an Old Testament guy or a New Testament guy? And he goes, I would say probably equal, And so there's an extent to which that's actually kind of like nonsense and just the dressing up of whatever your political principle happens to be in the language of religiosity. Obviously, Christianity is a big thing in American politics, and Christian nationalism is a big thing. But to what extent do you think like genuine, sincere religious belief is influencing American politics?
It's so hard for me to say, because as someone who's lived in liberal, relatively non-religious northeastern cities, essentially since I moved to the United States when I was 5 years old, my view is, of course, that even most of the people I know who are religious the way a lot of Italians are, which is sort of like
whatever you're about to say, I think it's going to be racist, but let's see.
Most of the people I know who are religious the way a lot of Italians are, which is sort of like nominally, and we kind of go through the motions. My Italian friends often say like, we're religious, but like, come on. And it's so my view is very skewed.
I mean, I don't disagree.
By that, and I say that as a sort of like agnostic Jewish person. But I don't want to assume that if you go to Nebraska and you go into the churches of Nebraska, that there is not genuine religious belief there, because I want to believe that there must be, even if I don't share in those beliefs. I don't want to believe that it's all window dressing and sort of contrived for socio-cultural status, or
to even entertain that is so stupid, naive, and condescending. Yeah, these people are just going to church every Sunday because they want to keep up appearances.
What?
That's y'all. You guys do random shit to virtue signal and show everybody else how great you are. So I think projection. Your positions are all the window dressing, contrived sociocultural status bullshit. Straight up projection. Sorry, you found the wrong atheist. King Jiffy said, them pizza-eating mom people are bad at religion. It's okay. I'm a leftist. Oh, we got a leftist in the building. Oh, my God. All right. Well, hey, set us straight then. If David Pakman's on point here, you got to set us straight. I have no desire in anything except truth. So if I'm wrong here, let me know.
window dressing and
Oh, let's see what we got over on Rumble. Quality said, my favorite Bible verse is the one about switching to your sidearm when reloading your machine gun and Terry shows up. I don't remember that one. Country Boy said, switching your sidearm is always faster than reloading. That one, I know.
Share in those beliefs. I don't want to believe that it's all window dressing and sort of contrived for cultural status or political power. But in a sense, I'm like the wrong guy to ask for a number of reasons.
On everything? Agreed.
Talk in your book, you mentioned specifically a moment in the very first chapter where people advocating for certain policies, be it like to do with the civil rights movement or indeed to do with abortion or whatever, even guns to some degree, would cite biblical justifications. And you said that this violates the church and state distinction because of the sort of creeping influence of religious belief into political matters. I think this is a very subtle issue, right? Like, what do you think the separation of church and state in this context in America means? A lot of people think that's a bad thing. I think you and I are on the same page that it's probably a good thing. Awesome.
I mean, you might have been joking, but that is straight up how it be. If you are on the left, thank you for this side quest. Time for a little side quest. Where is it? It'll take me a second, but we will find it. We will find it. Yeah, fuck the Hodge twins. That's not what I was looking for. Where is it? There we go.
Immigrants.
So remember when there was slavery and they were all like, if we get rid of slavery, then the economy is going to go down the drain.
Why are you shipping these immigrants up north? We need them to pick the crops.
Food is not reaching our table because those who pick the crops have been removed.
I mean, you're going to have vegetables rotting in the fields.
Our vegetables would rot in the ground if they weren't being picked by many illegal immigrants.
If you think your groceries are expensive now, wait until the farms are empty.
If you look at the food that's on your table, think about who picked it.
It's going to deport 20 million people, the people who picked.
I was never a fan of the Hodge twins, and I'll play that video next, but I always found it's like, okay, yeah, I think they're funny, but like that's not really what I'm going to that channel for. They're poised as a political channel, and like they'll have a 10-minute video and they'll play a 2-minute clip and have 30 seconds of actual commentary. And then they're just like joking and ribbing on each other. And that's kind of why I don't really like the Crowder show either, because they spend a lot of time just riffing and like, yeah, I'm sure if I was there, it would be fun. But like, as I'm watching, like, I'm not in on the joke. I'm not there. So, I have not. But if you drop a link in Discord, we can check it out.
on your table. Think about who picked it.
It's going to deport 20 million people, the people who pick your crops.
They come with regularity from Mexico usually to work in the fields.
Those immigrants that come into our country, they work the fields, something that we ain't done in a long time.
I can't wait until American women can't get blueberries for their smoothies.
Good news, Red States. You can now pick your own fruits and vegetables in the blazing hot sun for $5 an hour.
The people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants.
What's going to happen here is that milk gets a lot higher, because I don't know if any of you have ever been in a dairy farm. It is god-awful work.
And I was, when this conversation started up, I was like, how do they not remember the Kelly Osbourne moment on The View from like a decade ago? Like, who's going to clean your toilet, Donald Trump?
Have no immigration, then we would have no food on our plates. We would have nobody cleaning up in the hospitals.
And I have friends texting me like all morning. My gardener didn't show up. My housekeeper didn't show up. You're going to actually have to do some work around your house.
How dare we do work around our house? So, but yeah, I agree with you guys. It's, they got into politics and like, good for them. But like, just personally, not my cup of tea.
I don't have anybody around to wipe our asses because we don't have
JK, it's because they're black.
enough people.
If you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?
I'm pretty sure that was a decade ago. I'm pretty sure that was 2024. Or excuse me, 2014. I'm pretty sure. But since we were just talking about them.
The Hodge twins have officially lost all of my respect. Now, I don't know why I still held on to this idea that these guys had anything of, I guess, any value to actually say, like beyond just comedic relief. But, I actually started to believe.
I believe that, DJ.
These guys, when they said that they stood on true conservative values and they were America first, and I guess they were just overall genuine guys who believed in the things that we're saying. But it turns out that they decided to expose themselves, I guess, unknowingly. I don't exactly know how these guys process information necessarily, but just take a look at this. Stupid. Now, here we have two posts by the twins that came from two different accounts or two different social media platforms. One is Facebook, the other is on X. And these messages are no more than 2 hours in between. So let me go ahead and start with the X post, shall we? This reads, "We don't get nearly as excited for the potential for war as the bootlickers and the neocons do. We will always hold the line and speak up against war, whether we are right or wrong in the end."
Will you though?
Fantastic. They're standing up in opposition to the stance that DJT has made, as they have for the last few days. Then hours later, they put this message out to a different audience on Facebook. "President Trump just unleashed America's might, ordering a devastating attack on Iran's nuclear sites as Fordo, Natanz, and Lord, forgive me before I say this one, Esfahan."
We get the point. They know the boomers on Facebook are going to be all for whatever Trump does. But, on X, you're going to be a little bit different because people actually know what the fuck they're talking about. And I understand the irony of talking about people on X being more informed. I get that. But they knew that. They grifted. You just said, "I once knew an Antifa Mexican guy that would hang out with black cats, fuck black women, but when they weren't around, he was wildly racist." People are gonna people. And King said, "I think people would fill in those jobs. They won't do as good of a job and have to get paid more, but I believe someone would fill in those jobs." I don't have anything to back that up, but I think it's true. Yeah, I mean, it's a market force. So there's companies that utilize in the same way that I don't know if you would call them companies, but entities would utilize slave labor. And that was how the economy ran. We expected that we would get all of this free labor. And it's not like everybody had slaves. You would have plantations and they would do their shit and whatever. Similar to how right now, it's not like everybody is surrounded by illegal immigrants. It depends on where you live. And then, the jobs are there. And so in the same way that those exact jobs were filled by people who were willing to do them, there's nobody but there anymore. The jobs will be filled. And the people who are pocketing billions and billions and billions of dollars based on all this immigrant labor might have to shell out a little bit more. And maybe the economy takes a hit. Is that too much? That's too much for you to deal with human rights? Okay. If that's your position, fine.
That's what I'm...
means. A lot of people think that's a bad thing. I think you and I are on the same page that it's probably a good thing, awesome. But what actually is it? What does it mean to say that church and state are separate or should be separate?
It means different things in different contexts. And, I think so there's some simple ones, right? I think it's very clear that the 10 Commandments shouldn't be at a courthouse or at a post office.
I've come to disagree with that. I'm like, yo, throw that shit up there. The faster you put the 10 Commandments in every government place, the faster people ignore it. Just saying. Country Boy said there was a meatpacking plant that lost a ton of immigrants overnight. The next day, they had hundreds of applicants from Americans. Sounds like there's a lot of people who want a job, and maybe not necessarily that job, but we'll do a job if it's there. I said I didn't know there were so many channels with so many opinions about contemporary topics. Welcome to the internet. And guys, we are coming up on the 2-hour mark, or we are past the 2-hour mark. If you would like to keep the party raging, you know how to do it.
The 10 Commandments shouldn't be at a courthouse or at a post office. That's, by the way, something that does happen in the United States. There's lawsuits over it, but I think that that's very clear when we talk about separation of church and state. Choosing a document that applies to a couple of religions and putting it in an officially government-sanctioned place and capacity and position of privilege, I think that very clearly violates the principle of church and state. Lawyers can weigh in on whether it violates the legality, but I think it certainly violates the principle. I think with something like abortion,
and this is kind of, the complete opposite side of what Andrew Wilson was arguing with me when I did that debate, that he was trying to put me in the corner of saying that Christians should not be in power. And I had to, move the conversation to, well, I've absolutely no issues with Christians being in power. I just don't want Christians to make laws based solely on Christianity. And this is the other side of that.
Lawyers can weigh in on whether it violates the legality, but I think it certainly violates the principle. I think with something like abortion, I appreciate the subtlety of you can privately have only religious justifications for your opposition to abortion.
Let's do it. Let's do it tonight. Let's go through it. The after party, we'll go through the tag and we'll get all that shit. And then I'll be ready for the crucible. I mean, hey. Jake Rattlesnake decided to skip my segment. That's got to mean something. But I've got some more to do. Yeah, exactly. That's all I'm saying. And so, long story short, when DebateCon 5 was in Newark, and I went, and they were asking for 5 atheists to do a 5v1 Jubilee style debate versus Andrew Wilson. And so I was like, fuck yeah, I'll do that. But all of his prompts were shitty. So the first prompt that they did, it was 5 of us, so we each got 5 minutes. So they're doing 25-minute videos, and they're chopping them up. And the first one is Christians have as much of a right to rule as secularists do. Like, who the fuck disagrees with that? Maybe the most radical person ever. But to say that a Christian cannot hold office, you're already presupposing so much. And I was just like, I don't disagree with that, but I don't want a theocracy. And he wasn't able to understand. Smart guy,
Privately have only religious justifications for your opposition to abortion. That's not a problem at all. I'd rather we not even know about them, to be perfectly frank. The civil conversation about whether it should be legal, you should be able to justify its illegality based on something that is not based on a religious doctrine or text. Now, there are, of course, ways to game this, right? And so it could be that my real opposition to abortion is religious, and I sort of contrive or fabricate something and state that when I go and debate it in the state house. But to me, separation of church and state means you're allowed any private belief that you want, but the debates around what the law should be should not be couched in any scripture or religious text. That's my.
Now, I understand why someone like an Andrew Wilson would say, no, that's silly. And even if you think that that is the case, that there is, you're just adding extra steps. I can totally understand that. Andrew never fucking brought that up. King Jibby said, my wife is half Kuwaiti, so in order to be legally married in the country, I had to be Muslim. So did you, I don't remember if he said, did you have a religious affiliation before that? Or were you just, like, whatever? So I've seen a somewhat similar situation, where, someone's in a Jewish family and they're like, no, you have to be Jewish. And the other person's not really religious. So I was like, fuck yeah, I'll just become Jewish. I don't care. I said, I don't think we have much of a choice between oligarchy and technocracy. Maybe true, but there's always the lesser of two evils. If EBT weren't insane, he could have been helpful with this.
My initial framework, at least.
I see. Yeah, because the quote, I found the quote that I was talking about here right on page 11. So right near the beginning, you're talking about racial integration and civil rights. And you say, as has been the case in the battles for LGBTQ plus rights, abortion rights, and other rights, this group would often cite biblical justifications for racial separation. Whether these citations were accurate is irrelevant, as using a religious text or using religious texts to justify civil law clearly violates the principle of separation of church and state on which the United States was founded. And when I read that, it jumped out at me, because I thought, well, it's not, I don't think it violates church and state to cite biblical justifications for your vote. But presumably here you're talking about the public advocacy of political groups. But again, there is this further subtlety where even if you have like a political campaign group that just says, yeah, we are Christians and we think Christianity forbids abortion, and that's why we think you should vote against abortion, that doesn't violate any principles.
No, not at all. There's a huge difference between saying, I have these religious beliefs, and that's why I want this political position. But the political position itself has to have further, some further justification. Because if it is just the fact that you like it, then that is not enough. That is not enough. And as Pakman accurately said, you might have to come up with some justification that fits in with the secular world, even if that's not necessarily the main reason. Unfortunately, that's the way the game works. Matthew said, Thomas Jefferson writes one letter to a Baptist church, and these idiots beat us over the head with it for 250 years. Hey, Thomas Jefferson was the man. The man. Let's take a little break. So if you guys are enjoying the show, the party rages on 24/7 over in our Discord. The link is pinned to the top of the chat and is absolutely free to join 24/7. We're in there hanging out, having a great time. And guys, it is absolutely free. However, if you are a member of this channel here on YouTube, you can scroll right below that video and hit that join button. Starts at $2.99. There's a few different tiers, but $2.99 will get you in. It gets you members only live streams here on YouTube, all that other good stuff. But it opens up the full Discord server. So we've got the free chat that is open to anyone. Anybody can join and talk. But as you can see, that is just one of our channels. There's a bunch of different channels here, including our Disciple chat for members only, our Word of the Day watch party, where we're talking about all this stuff. And of course, we have the voice channel here, where we are hanging out at this moment. Shout out to everybody in the Discord server. Say hello and tell them to come and join. There you go, guys. Simple as that. See you there. And of course, if you join during the stream like King Jippy Coach did, then you get a day pass to the members only after party. You got full access for 24 hours. So click the link at the top of the chat. It is free. Come on through.
Abortion, and that's why we think you should vote against abortion. That doesn't violate any principles.
Nope.
If a legislator gets up in Congress and says, I want to oppose abortion because of my religious beliefs, to me, that is still something which, although it's starting to get a little bit murky, I still think it's kind of legitimate to say, like, I have my private beliefs and that's what informs my vote. But at the same, because you can't not do that, right? Like as a legislator, you can't just put your convictions to the side. Maybe you should, but like I'm really confused about exactly where this line between like private religious belief motivating how you vote in an election versus private religious belief sort of creeping into, is it public advocacy? Is it the construction of law itself? Like where is this line between the private and the public with
the justification? So whatever your faith, whatever your ideology brings you to, the ideology itself cannot be the justification, even if internally for you, that is the reason that you have this position. The idea is that other people are not necessarily going to have that that ideology. So there must be something outside the ideology itself that justifies it being added to the legal or political landscape. Otherwise, you're just saying, my God said, therefore it should be. And I know a lot of people think like that, but luckily for Thomas Jefferson, separation of church and state. And I mean, hey guys, Christianity is on its way out. So you're going to be happy. You're going to be happy with the nuns when the Islamists come over and try to take over the secular world, which you are very, very much a central part of. They want to destroy the secular world. And I promise you, the atheists will have your back. And I know most of them are shitty. And I'm better than most of them. But either way, we've got your back.
Is it the construction of law itself? Like where is this line between the private and the public with religious belief?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point. There is, I think there is some murkiness, you know? I mean, to take another example with the racial stuff, right? During the early phases of the civil rights movement, and even recently in the Mormon church, right? I mean, there are alleged scriptural justifications for why Black people are less than, and therefore discrimination against them is actually justified.
No, honey, sweetie, baby. Oh, you poor Christians. You poor Christians have no idea the world that you live in. So I know that you have these ideas and you think that they're great and they're amazing, and that's great. I think it's better than most of these atheists who have no ideas and no values. But to think that you are more aligned with your ideology than the Islamists and the jihadists are with theirs is just naivete. What I'm saying is I will have your back when the jihadists come for you because you are part of the secular world. It doesn't matter that you believe in an Abrahamic God. You are part of the secular world, and they want to kill you because of that. And I will have your back, Christians. I will back the Christians. And the moderate Muslims, who they definitely ain't going to count you as part of their team. I'm saying we got your back against the jihadists.
People are less than, and therefore discrimination against them is actually justified.
There you go. Clip it. David Pakman says discrimination against Black people is actually justified.
If we put a pause on that for a second, imagine that you actually could have a non-religious, scientific racism verified way of saying, no, here is a difference between races, and therefore there should be discrimination under the law. People of certain races.
Fuck. What? It's not eugenics. Is it? Fuck. What's the word I'm looking for? Eugenics, right? That's the right word I'm talking about, right?
Difference between races, and therefore there should be discrimination under the law. People of certain races shouldn't be allowed to hold certain jobs or whatever. I would still be against it, right? And so I think that there is, you bring up a really interesting point, and I think that there are some cases where you know it when you see it in terms of this establishment of one religion over another, but I do think there's a lot more murkiness than maybe some on the political left are willing to acknowledge. It doesn't change my view, but I think that we have to acknowledge that, and I think that the framework in which we talk about this has to be elaborated a little bit more.
Like suppose a legislator were voting and they got up and they said to their constituents,
God told me, therefore.
I think that abortion is wrong because I'm a Christian. That is why I think it's wrong, and this is how I'm going to vote. Whether or not they would, successfully win the next election or whatever, would you see that straightforward, like, this is my private religious belief, but my job as a legislator is to say this is what I privately believe and this is what I'm going to vote? Do you think something as explicit as that would be a violation of this sacred church-state distinction?
I do. But like they said, it is murky, and I think it's case by case. Because if you're saying, I'm a Christian and I think this, that, and we can see that objectively, so on and so forth, then it's just an addition. It just can't be the sole reason. UJ said, CRT is a shitty attempt at that, calling dog water soft science sociology to make racial claims and aim for equity. Yup.
Or would it need to be more like institutionally embedded for it to constitute a violation?
I
Like,
think
that
it
be a
would need to
problem?
be more institutionally embedded. I think simply an elected official informing us the basis for their vote probably does not cross the line legally. I mean, again, it's really...
If he was this guy on his own show, he wouldn't be that bad. I don't know why he can't, like, just be this guy. Why do you have to drag along the fucking bullshit of everything that your party says and constantly just orange man bad, orange man bad, orange man bad? I don't get it. Clearly, he has demonstrated that he understands at a higher level. The grift.
A question for a lawyer, but it doesn't strike me as something that would cross the line.
Unlike if the legislation they were proposing said in the law, like, abortion is wrong because God says so, or something like that. That would be the kind of enshrinement that would violate this distinction. I just think that a lot of the time people are a little bit confused about exactly what it means to say there's a separation of church and state, as if when someone says, oh, I voted for this because I'm a Christian, they sort of say, well, that's very anti-Jeffersonian of you. It's like, I'm not sure that that's actually what he meant. And I think it's worth sort of clearing that up. And it sounds like we're
No,
on
I
the
think
same
that's
page about
exactly
that.
right. And this actually came up in the aftermath of the law that banned bans on same-sex marriage. So you could no longer ban same-sex marriage at the state level. The next kind of wave of challenges on this.
Shout out to Kevin Gonzalez. Welcome, welcome, welcome. The state of morality is subjective, then any political group can be justified by any ideology. Good and bad policies just simply become meaningless. I don't know, just saying. And I don't necessarily disagree, but we then get to the idea of an objective morality, and if that makes sense, if you're using a God, and if it does make sense, does that God actually exist? I don't see a lot of people willing to have those conversations, and when they do, it's just a lot of dogma. Well, I believe this, therefore. So, I mean, I definitely agree that subjective morality is a lot more messy than objective morality. But if objective morality is just a pipe dream, then we got to deal with reality. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. DJ said, Pakman thinks he's converting Alex deeper into the secular woke cult. This performance is not good faith. It's smug and cynical and very on brand for Pakman. I think, I mean, it sounds like you are a little bit more familiar with him than I am. But if this is on brand, then unless you're saying that the sliminess of not representing what I personally have seen from his clips of his own show, I don't know. Either way, he's a fucking slime ball. There we go. See, gotta test the noggin on here. Gotta test the noggin. Welcome to the party, Kevin.
You could no longer ban same-sex marriage at the state level. The next kind of wave of challenges on this became so-called religious freedom. The infamous cake baking case was also sort of played a role in this, and then
yeah, like when they specifically sought out an openly Christian bakery and wanted a gross, what's the word, vulgar cake, and they wouldn't do it. Terrible Christians.
Hobby Lobby cases, there's a bunch of these different examples, and it's the idea that, okay, listen, we're not saying ban same-sex marriage, but you must respect my religious belief that this is wrong, and therefore I, as a county clerk, will not do any gay marriages. By the way, that woman lost. I forget her name, Kim something. And so I think that that's kind of like the next wave of how you can interject religion in these ways, which seem completely on the wrong side of that separation.
Yeah, the cake baking thing, if I remember rightly, it was a gay wedding cake, right?
That's right.
And the cake bakers didn't want to make the cake. And as far as I'm aware, it wasn't like they wouldn't sell this cake. It was like they were going to make a cake as like special. They were going to like design it or put some writing or on it or whatever.
And who remembers what David Pakman was saying about what was wrong with the right during COVID? What was that? I remember him saying something about telling corporations what they could do. So when it's convenient to him, he wants to be able to tell a company, hey, you have to do this. But when the companies don't want to do what he wants them to do, they're like, well, it's so horrible. It's racist. They're homophobic. Or maybe they just don't want to do nasty shit, what they define as nasty.
Make a cake is like specially they're going to like design it or put some writing or on it or whatever.
It was a dick.
That became like really emblematic of this murkiness and defining church-state separation. And it's interesting because when you talk to people and you say, well, you know, maybe they're like an asshole because they don't want to make this cake, but look,
no, they just didn't want to make an asshole cake. That's where you're getting confused.
That's their belief, and you can't force somebody to say anything or produce what is essentially art on a bit of cake. And
shout out to JBP. You cannot force speech.
A lot of people, with a moment's reflection, were like, okay, actually, yeah, maybe I'm confusing my discomfort with their moral choice with like a legal principle, which is that they should be able to do that. And then it's like, okay, now suppose it's an interracial marriage and the same thing happens, and suddenly people find it really difficult to swallow that pill in the same way. Do you think that was an indication of murky church state?
Of course you do. It's almost like religious beliefs and beliefs about race are not the same thing.
Violation. Like I don't know what your view at the time was. It's been a while since that case has come up, but what was your feeling on?
Well, I think they definitely should have done that because it's gay and gay is good, and of course it's racist if you're not gay.
Matt.
I mean, listen, there's two different sides to this. My feeling was that it was completely wrong and it was using a religious justification. It was lobbying a civil government with regard to public accommodations on the basis of a religious belief. So I believe that it would be, it should have been against the law. I believe that ultimately it would.
Wait, what? It sounded like he was making the argument that like, well, this is, you know, their business and whatever. And then comes to no, but they should have. Wait, I got to hear that.
Was that it was completely wrong and it was using a religious justification. It was lobbying a civil government with regard to public accommodations on the basis of a religious belief. So I believe that it would be, it should have been against the law. I believe
based on his justification, that is why it should not be against the law.
Believe that ultimately it was deemed legal because there were so many alternative places that could bake cakes that you couldn't reasonably argue that these people on the basis of their sexual orientation were being denied. And so I believe that it was allowed. I think there are other circumstances where, imagine in a hospital setting where a nurse says, I don't want to administer a medication that you need because something about your identity, lifestyle, beliefs,
unless it's the COVID jab, obviously,
or attractions violates my religious views. I think that in the medical world, again, I'm not a lawyer. I think it might even depend on the state, but it may be federal law says you actually can't do that. You have to administer the medication. That's not a scenario where you can use your religious beliefs as justification. And I think we can all understand how a needed medical treatment and a cake are substantively different. They don't really change my personal view about it, but it may be a different legal situation, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, to me, those feel significantly different in a way that is relevant, which like if you were going to die or have serious medical problems without some kind of treatment and a doctor says, I'm not treating you because you're gay, like that is quite trivially just like illegal as far as I'm concerned. Whereas if it were like the doctor, for some reason, if they don't perform this behavior, like,
you know, like transing a child,
you know, like two gay people are still going to get married, but they're going to have a slightly worse marriage and it's not going to be quite as enjoyable. I don't think it would carry the same sort of moral force because, like you say, there is this complication of like alternate available services, but also the extent to which it is just a non-essential product that is like curated rather than something that's just being sold or given out that's then being actually refused. It feels a bit more like to me going to like a band and saying, oh, I really want you to play some music at our wedding, and they say, oh, sorry, we're a Christian rock band, we can't play gay marriages.
Who remembers the meme? I don't know if this was just my area of being a rave bro in like 2010, but there was an instance when, what was the song? Call Me Maybe. When Call Me Maybe was blowing up, and there was just a meme of a DJ just fucking face palming this bitch, and like the caption was, "Will you play Call Me Maybe?" I'm gonna see if I can find it.
At our wedding, and they say, "Oh, sorry, we're a Christian rock band. We can't play gay marriages." I think people would still be kind of like maybe upset about that. They might say, why did you choose them in the first place? But I don't think it would have caused the same like national like frenzy as the cake thing. And I wonder if the cake is more like the band playing the gig than it is like the doctor administering the medicine, if you know what I mean.
I think without a doubt it is. And I'm thinking about this in terms of the legal framework. I mean, of course, on a practical moral level, if I were a gay couple, I wouldn't want the homophobic band playing at the wedding. It's just sort of like naturally practical conclusion. But from a legal standpoint, I do think the band and the cake are probably one category, and the medical treatment or processing your passport application at a post office for a man and his husband or whatever. I think that those are a different category in a sense.
Sure, but I think the bottom line here is that there absolutely are situations where your religious limits, shall we say, your religious limits absolutely are justified. And if you don't want to do something because it is against your religion, that despite how other people may feel about that, that is completely valid. You said apparently non-Muslims are not to touch a Muslim. Medical treatment and corpse handling are not supposed to be exceptions to this. This is what made the Guantanamo Bay scandal even worse for Muslims. It's to touch them all at all, much less humiliate them. Well, get a better fucking religion. I don't know what the fuck I can tell you.
Sense. Sure. Okay. I want to round up here. We've sort of gone a little bit off track, and I got a bit distracted by the new pope, and it's all very exciting. But one thing that I think it is important to sort of to put out here as a sort of
remember, guys, if you would like the after party that is due to every single member and anybody who joined during the stream, including King Jiffy Codes, make sure you are in the voice channel. Let us speak. Make sure you are there before the stream is, and if not, right after, so that I know to come in and hang out with you.
But one thing that I think it is important to sort of to put out here as a sort of end to this conversation is the fact that you've already said there's a lot about the success of the right that's really due to the failure of the left. And it's very popular to say, Trump didn't win the election, Harris lost the election, stuff like that, that kind of language. It was more popular when it was Hillary, right? Like Hillary lost the election, Trump didn't win it. But people often say this kind of thing. It's like, well, at least to some degree, it's a failure of the left. What changes need to be made? What lessons can be learned from this election cycle so that next time we do this, the left has a stronger, more viable, and like you referred to earlier, less dismissive, all of this kind of stuff? Like, what can we learn? What changes need to be made to be more successful the next time around?
Everything! Shout out to Indie Film coming into the last minute to say it was good. Said pretty sure Muslim would let a non-Muslim doctor operate on them in the ER to save their life. These are the people that blow themselves up. Are you sure about that? Because then we're talking about a moderate Muslim who the jihadists, again, would lump in with you and me and everybody else here, Christian, Jew, otherwise. We are part of the secular world. But welcome to the party. Yep, they never do. I'm actually interested to see what his answer is here. But I have a feeling it's going to be something. We need our own Joe Rogan. You had one. We need our own Tulsi Gabbard. You had one. We need our own Donald Trump. You had one. Guys, if you are new here, please do me that huge favor of hitting that like button and subscribe. I'm live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and sometimes whenever I feel like I've been dropping videos almost every single day. Please do hit that subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a video or party ever again.
All of this kind of stuff. Like, what can we learn? What changes need to be made to be more successful the next time around?
It's a very long list.
Bro. You can't.
I mean, in no particular order of importance, the relationship between the political establishment left and independent media needs to be totally rethought. I think that Trump and Republicans related to the podcast and independent media space in a way that was very helpful to them.
Yeah, because we're interested in discussing our ideas. You are not. I mean, shout out to Caitlin Bennett, just to name somebody. But she goes to all these fucking left-wing protests and nothing. They never, ever, 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 ever want to talk. Oh, they're going to twist your words. Speak up. If all of you speak up, it doesn't matter if somebody twists 3 people's words because the message will be out there. But you're not fucking smart enough to understand that. So you're just going to be quiet. Just quiet. Just don't say anything. Just don't say anything. That's going to change things. That's going to change things.
The Harris campaign did not. I think the lessons around appearing to dismiss concerns with regard to immigration and crime are a reminder that what people believe matters impacts the way they vote, regardless of what the statistics demonstrate, and sort of really rethinking that. Number 3, a lot of the economic ideas of Kamala Harris did not resonate. So there was this idea of, hey, I'm going to give a tax cut. I'm going to give a tax deduction, or was it a credit? I've forgotten, against costs to start a new business. Like, great, okay, cool, but that doesn't have the emotional capture of they're coming over the border and I'm going to put a stop to it,
They're
even if that's
politicians,
untrue.
right.
It's just not, it's a categorical difference. It's just completely different. So I think that there needs to be a coherent message that's actually something to vote for. Number 4.
That's a great place to start. Having a coherent message on something to vote for. Yeah. But you know what you need before you have a message that's actually something to vote for? You have to have a principle. And they don't have principles. They just have positions. Kevin said, people's feelings have become tools of power to make other individuals forcefully respect and interact with their desires until they feel satisfied. People's feelings have become tools of power to make other individuals forcefully respect and interact with their desires until they, Yep. This is the transit. You must adhere to me. You must adhere to me, or you are a bad person. Hey, shout out to Box. Another one coming in last minute. Good to see you, brother. Said, my best friend died last year, and his sister just came over for the first time since he passed. I'd like to say R.I.P. Jason Iverson. His wit was unmatched, and we dearly miss him. Dilly. Jason Iverson. Dilly. All right, let's see what he's got for us.
I think that there needs to be a coherent message that's actually something to vote for. Number 4, the idea that voting against whoever else is running as enough should be completely done away with.
Wait. What do you say?
Whoever, it's actually something to vote for. Number 4, the idea that voting against whoever else is running as enough should be completely done away with.
This is naive. And this is what prevented me from voting for Trump in 2020, because I was swindled by the mainstream media. I didn't have the media literacy to know that mainstream media was bullshit. They had me as a Bernie bro. We're about to head over to the after party. This is about to be done. And so maybe another 10 minutes or so. But what the fuck was I saying? Come on, DJ guys.
Whoever else is running.
Oh, yeah. The idea of the lesser of two evils. These are politicians. I think the left forgot that all politicians are shitty people, because Donald Trump's shittiness is a little bit more out in the open. They forgot. Or maybe they just haven't learned yet that they're all corrupt. Politics, at least in the near future, in America, will always be the lesser of two evils. That is just something that we have to understand is the name of the game. You're not going to get somebody that you love so much, that you care about, that you think is not only intelligent, but is caring and thinks about you personally. They want to make sure your dreams come true. That is not how it works. That's just not how it works. And so this idea of getting rid of, we have to vote for the lesser two, all that's going to get you is less people voting. You're like, I'm not going to vote for J.D. Vance. I mean, the Democrat person's okay. But David Pakman said, don't just vote against the last person. So go for it. Go for it, David Pakman. Keep telling people to not vote for the lesser of two evils. It worked on me. I didn't vote for Trump in 2020 because he was the lesser of two evils. And then I realized it's always the lesser of two evils. It's politics. That's all it is. Shout out to Funk Master General coming in hot with the $20 to give praise to Morty, the overlord of all matter in the universe. Indeed, he is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So very, very much, sir. At the last minute, knocking the overlord out of the sponsor spot. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So very, very much, sir.
Number 4, the idea that voting against whoever else is running as enough should be completely done away with. People really do need something to vote for. And then finally, I would say candidates need to be selected based on who they are rather than chosen and then like molded into what the Democratic Party thinks that they should be.
Yeah, so pie in the sky ideas. If everything were different, then it would be better.
That just doesn't work. It comes off as inauthentic and disingenuous. So those would be like
right. But again, the alternative is something that is not realistic.
Party thinks that they should be. That just doesn't work. It comes off as inauthentic and disingenuous. So those would be like 5 bullet points at least.
Yeah. Well, phenomenal, David. I think it's been a fun conversation. It's a little bit outside of my normal area of sort of strict philosophy, but I think it's important not just to talk about this stuff, but to also see the extent to which
nobody does. That's all right. You're in good company, Box. Nobody does. Shout out to Andy Bam with the $5. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So very, very much. Peace to you all in the name of Morty. Very much appreciated, sir. Hey guys, we're getting close. We might hit the goal.
Sort of strict philosophy.
Remember, it's $2 a push-up, but no push-ups if we don't hit the goal.
But I think it's important not just to talk about this stuff, but to also see the extent to which philosophical assumptions and ideas actually underlie a lot of what seems to just be practical political thinking and decision making. So I appreciate you taking the time and coming on the show. The book is The Echo Machine: How Right-Wing Extremism Created a Post-Truth America.
I bet you can't wait to read that. Yikes. So I do see a number of people here have not seen the clip. And so since you guys are being so generous, then let's do this and check it out.
And the link is of course.
A politician, right? You vote him in office, he's Christian. He's going to be making moral decisions on behalf of the electorate, right?
Right.
Where do you want him to? Where do you want him to draw his information from?
From the electorate. So with the electorate's not all religious.
What if the electorate asks him to do something immoral?
What if God asked you to do something immoral? When you see him give the prompt, that's the only time that it's mentioned. And so I'm across the room, and look what he does.
Human.
So what was the claim again?
You don't remember the claim? It's.
You don't remember the claim? No, I didn't hear the claim. So everything that you're about to see is just in that moment. So let me actually have him read the prompt.
My name is Andrew Wilson, host of The Crucible, popular entertainment channel on YouTube.
He's barely more than mumbling.
And today I'm going to be debating 5 different people on 5 different topics for 5 minutes. My first topic will be Christians have as much of a right to rule as secularists.
Christians have as much a right to rule as secularists. Something I don't disagree with. So you'll see that a lot of this is figuring out, okay, how do we move this conversation to something that we indeed actually do disagree about? A few months ago, I was at debate. Again! Oh my goodness! Oh, I thought I was going to have a night off! We got Funkmaster with another 20! And then Bog's coming in with a 5! I don't want to see you do push-ups. I want to see you eat rice and chicken until you gain. Well, that's what gets me hungry. I need to be doing stuff so that I get hungry. But I think we just hit the goal. Thank you very, very much, guys. Guess it's time. Well, we'll do this. And then time for push-ups. And then time for rice and beans and chicken to bulk me up. Indeed, actually do disagree about. A few months ago, I was at DebateCon 5 in New Jersey, and I got to sit down and debate Andrew Wilson in a 5 versus 1 type of Jubilee-style debate, with the first prompt being Christians have as much right to rule as secularists. And that was something that I never disagreed with. And he decided that even though he's the blood sport debater, Even though he knew the prompts the day before, he had to make sure all of us had no idea what it was until the moment we sat down. So that's $67. $2 is one push-up. Yikes. I'm in trouble. Is that conversation. So what was the claim again?
I don't remember the claim. It's that.
Didn't hear the claim. I was on the other side of the room. But hey, you know what? Good underhanded tactic to make me look stupid unjustly to start off.
It's Christians have as much of a right to rule as secularists or atheists.
Okay, I'm a little confused as to why that. I don't think a lot of people would disagree with that.
Oh, not they, him. So the situation is that Andrew Wilson himself came up with 5 different prompts the day before this, the first day of the DebateCon. So we're all there, DebateCon, we're doing our thing, we go out drinking, we're hanging out. This was like 9 in the morning the next day. He decided that we couldn't know the prompts, and if you'd given us even like 30 minutes to be like, this is going to be the first prompt. Here's where you want to go with it. Then I would have been able to drive the conversation to somewhere where we disagreed with. But the blood sport debater felt like he needed to spring it on a bunch of atheists. Ugh. Oh, another one! One more push-up and one more treat for Morty. I do round down. We are rounding down. So we're at 69, so that's 68, that's 34. 34. Round it down.
As to why that I don't think a lot of people would disagree with that. What part do you
don't think that a lot of people would disagree with it?
I think.
Then why do they get upset when Christians are in office and they make policy based on Christianity?
Because they make policy based on Christianity.
So now we see it's not about being Christian. It's about basing policy on Christianity.
The fact that they are Christian.
Well, okay. How do you want a Christian to morally inform their view for policy making if it's not through Christianity?
I'm not saying that it can't be through Christianity. It can't be because of Christianity.
Why?
Very clear distinction.
Because it's not a Christian nation.
Yeah, what does that have to do with anything? If a politician, right, you vote him in office, he's a Christian. He's going to be making moral decisions on behalf of the electorate, right?
Right. So what it has to do with your prompt is that you're presenting as if I'm saying that we can't have any Christians in office, when that is not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying the Christians that are in office can't just say, because the Bible says that is the law. Right?
Where do you want him to?
So yes, that is what Andrew thinks of all atheists. You put out a random call to atheists and they will think that Christians should not be in office, according to Andrew Wilson.
All those
where do you want him to draw his information from?
From the electorate. So with the electorate's not all religious.
What if the electorate has to do something immoral?
Well, then that's completely different.
All right, then he should be informing his viewpoint from his ethics, which is going to be Christianity. Right?
Remember, I said I didn't disagree with you.
It's not a dichotomy. You don't either have Christian ethics or completely non-Christian. You can take your Christian ethics and apply them to a secular situation. No.
Sure, you can apply.
Okay, then we agree.
Secularists.
What are we talking about?
Your Christian ethics to secularists, but that would be ruling secularists with Christian ethics.
Right, but then we agree that there's no issue with Christians or seculars having power.
No, I don't think we do agree. So your idea here,
he's not caught up yet. It took him a minute, but eventually he understands.
Is you take issue if Christians make policy based on Christianity.
No, because of Christianity. This is the law because Christianity says. Not, I am a Christian and I think this is bad. And also other people who are not Christians also think it is bad.
Let's say that other people who aren't Christians.
Well, but okay, so you guys know that's my pet peeve. I just made a very clear point. You're just going to brush right by it. Why? Because it makes a lot of sense and goes to show how stupid your prompt is.
This is the law because Christianity says. Not, I am a Christian, I think this is bad. And also other people who are not Christians also think it is bad.
Let's say that other people who aren't Christians do think it's bad.
Go back to the electorate. What does the electorate say?
We're going to, but the politicians
so if the electorate happens to be Christian, then
why is there a problem
Christian ethics in politics?
Why is there a problem with the creation of an imposition of your ethical view if you're in a position of power on people who don't want it?
For the same reason you wouldn't want Sharia law.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
But right now we have secularists who tear down 10
Not going to address that either. Not going to address how you would feel about Sharia law.
commandments. They tear down prayer in school. They tear down all sorts of symbols that Christians care about. They tear down, in fact,
based on
they
the
push
electorate,
they push
right?
through. No, not just based on the electorate. Based.
Okay, then based on what? People want that. They vote for that, and the politicians do that. I agree that some of the stuff that is voted for is bad and shouldn't be enacted, but that's what politics do, and that's what politicians are supposed to do. Go to their electorate and do what they want.
On their agenda. There's a lot of things that people will get put in, politicians get put in office, right? By an electorate. Sometimes maybe they're only going to go for one term, or maybe it's their last term. They don't do anything based on what the electorate's saying, but based on their own ideology, based on their own worldview.
Okay. So politicians just do whatever they want and it has nothing to do with the people that voted for them. So I could definitely agree that there's an aspect of that. But if you're trying to make the argument that politicians can ignore their electorate completely and be successful, then I disagree with that. We could talk about that, but that wasn't your problem.
Just doing things randomly that nobody
sometimes. But atheists,
I don't necessarily disagree. But the fact of the matter, the point is that is irrelevant to whether it is done because of Christianity. If they're doing things on their own because because they think it's a good idea, and then secularly from a Christian perspective, people can say, yes, I like that. That's a good idea. But people from a secular perspective, non-religious.
Let me just back that up. Did anybody not understand the point, the sentence that I said here? I'll highlight it.
Because of Christianity. If they're doing things on their own because because they think it's a good idea, and then secularly from a Christian perspective.
So if they're doing something from a Christian perspective, but through a Christian perspective, but it's a secular thing, murder is wrong because the Bible says so, and also this. Is anyone confused other than Andrew Wilson? And made by Jim Bob. Oh, where you go? So why can't we as Christians make laws based on God's law? You have no argument. You're conflating the same thing Andrew did. You can't make laws solely on God's law. It's not how America works. As much as you may want it, this nation simply isn't a theocracy.
People can say, yes, I like that. That's a good idea. But people from a secular perspective, non-religious people can also say, I think that's a good idea. And as an electorate, as a non-Christian nation, or not officially a Christian nation, obviously most people are Christian in this nation, but not everybody.
So, of course, we have the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not kill. But that's not the only reason that we have laws against murder. Other people who don't use the 10 Commandments also don't want murder. And then we vote for that. And then it becomes law. Politics.
And so that's the point of having the republic, that everybody.
When somebody says something's right and wrong, where are they getting that information?
So now we're pivoting to, well, where's your objective morality?
I think I agree with you. Even as an atheist, I think we all, at least in America, are pulling from Christian, I'll say values.
Yeah, Christian ethics.
But so
if Christians,
but that's the dichotomy that I was bringing up before. You're saying as if you have to ignore Christianity in order to be a politician. I don't think anybody's making that claim.
No, I'm saying that politicians rule from atheism or rule from Christian ethics. They either rule from a lack of religion or.
That's the false dichotomy. No, that is not necessarily the case, because there is nothing from atheism. That doesn't mean anything. There's no values that are espoused by atheism. Atheism is merely the lack of a belief in a God or gods. And as I'm saying, I have respect for Christian values. I'm not one of these leftist, blue-haired, whatever, that says we need to get rid of all this stuff. That's not me. That's not me. That doesn't make me any less of an atheist. And it proves the point that he, like many other Christians, just see atheists as one group because they, Christians, are a group. And it's just like, oh, well, they're a group, so we're a group. They must be a group too. That's not how it works. An atheist will draw from other things, other moral philosophies from Christianity. That doesn't mean that they believe in it. And even though there are things that a secular person can agree with from the Bible, from the scripture, from Christian ethics, doesn't mean that that alone is a justification to put it into law, because other people might not like it. And even though me and Andrew agree that Christian ethics are good for society, that doesn't mean that it's justified to make laws based on scripture.
Or through religious informed ethics.
So, I mean, and then still, I don't have an issue with your Christian ethics informing your secular decision, that this is the law.
No, how about your Christian ethics informing your Christian decision in the rule of policy?
If you want to change, that's exactly what I'm saying. No to a Christian decision because of a Christian policy because of a Christian decision. He's mixing up the ethics with the scripture. Be nice to other people is a Christian ethic. That's not the same thing as thou shalt not, wear two different types of cloth.
Change the government to be a Christian nationalist government.
How would that be changing the government?
Because it's not a Christian nationalist government. Have I been living under a rock? I'm pretty sure America is not a Christian nation, or Christian nationalist nation.
Because that's not the way it is.
Yes, it is. The way of the government right now is that you can indeed craft policy based around Christian ethics. When you say because of,
that's not what I said. I said it's not a Christian nationalist nation. And you said, yes, it is. Now you can base craft policy based around Christian ethics. Straw man.
Christianity, it doesn't mean anything.
No, it doesn't mean anything to you because you don't understand what I'm saying, and your prompt is really bad. And I only had 5 minutes, and you, for some reason, you need to hide the prompts to yourself, even though you're the blood sport debater. These weaselly little atheists, you couldn't let them know what you were thinking, so we're just off the dome. and you've been thinking about this all day, and still you can't even stay on your own topic. Yikes. Another one! Oh, you guys are killing me! You guys are killing me! Another push-up and another $2 and another treat for the overlord. All right, let's finish this up and get to some push-ups. Come on, man.
Oh, my morals come from Christianity because of the Bible. It's like, yeah. So what though? I don't understand what the distinction.
Right, you don't understand. You're the one who doesn't understand. I think my point is pretty damn clear.
Distinction here is.
I mean, it should have been, but you know, Andrew Wilson can't be seen agreeing with an atheist. And on that point, I have something else to show you really quick as soon as this is done.
The distinction is the reason that this is a law. I think this is
what's a law?
Whatever the law is. You might think X is a good law because it aligns with your Christian ethics. I might think X is a good law because of whatever other reason. The fact that your Christian ethics also informed us to the same conclusion. The point is that we come to the conclusion, we vote on that conclusion. Not you have your ideology and therefore you win.
Nobody's disputing that atheists can sometimes agree with Christians, or that Christians can sometimes agree with atheists when it comes to prescriptive claims and policy.
Right. As I said, I agree that Christians have just as much of a right to be in office as secularists. I never disagreed with that. And I don't know why you would think that just plucking a random atheist would think that. It shows a huge, huge naivete.
Okay. That's not my claim. Yeah,
your claim is really stupid. So we're trying to talk about something else.
Nice person, please.
All right, thank you.
And that's all we got. That was all we got. 5 minutes is not enough time. I mean, big shout out to Modern Day Debate and Uncensored America and Andrew Wilson and the Crucible for doing this. It was a good experience. But yeah, the prompts were just not good. And with only 5 minutes and not having any preparation as to, okay, I agree with this prompt, so I need to move the conversation to somewhere where we disagree. Otherwise, we'll just be like, yep, agreed. So, and I only have 5 minutes. Whereas if you had given me the prompts even half an hour before I sat down, then I could have been able to be like, okay, well, I agree with this, but let's talk about this instead. And you'll see that in all the rest of the parts. So definitely check out the full thing from Modern Day Debate. It is on the channel now. I did share. Please, if you wouldn't mind, I just dropped the link to this. Go leave a comment or something that will help the algorithm. So last thing before we leave here, Jake Rattlesnake covered this entire thing. Well, did he? Because we can, as I told you guys, it was a 5v1, right? Does it say anything about 5v1? No, but it's five of us versus one. And instead of Jubilee, where we're all running to the chair to try it, we just all had our 5 minutes. So we have Jake Rattlesnake's video, and
atheists have no leg to stand on when they say
day debate regarding a question that often just gets dismissed, and it deserves to actually be debated a lot more because it's a completely reasonable position to take. Sure.
Okay, fair enough. So let's go to the first person. We had this
have
guy.
as much a right to rule as secular people.
Correct.
Okay.
So just to kind of let me flesh it out a little bit for you very briefly.
Yeah.
So
Dude, all right,
change
well,
in certain parts of it, right? Or
what about
stop
this
becoming
guy?
the concept of, well,
Oh, still on him. Okay, all right. So let's go. We can look at the timer. Timer goes down. Jake is back.
Make that it is unethical for Christians to use their Christian beliefs to inform their.
Right, so now we got the next person. Actually, oh man, this guy left after this one. Let's watch this.
Rule as much as your stance is Christians have the right to rule as much as seculars.
Yeah.
Okay. So as a Christian, I can't disagree with you too much on that. However, just because you're Christian doesn't mean you shouldn't be in power. But what you do with your morals and values should not be portrayed in how you rule. And I'm a big believer in church and state, or separation of church and state. So, there's a place for the religious aspect of your life and your upbringing and all that, but it shouldn't be brought into more of a power stance.
You can't separate church and state. Let me explain why. Have you ever elected a politician who's a Christian?
Yes.
Did you expect that when he ruled from his moral stances, which were informed by Christianity?
I would expect that he would have ruled based off of his policies, which...
What? How's he going to figure his policies out other than what he considers moral in his brain?
So...
Yeah. How's he going to figure his policies out unless he figures it out?
Jake, you should have let it play. You should have let it play because he just fucking sat there for a good minute. Yeah, same prompt for everybody. Christians have as much of a right to rule as secularists. That was the prompt. Yeah, I don't know why this guy was even here if he's a Christian.
Yeah. How's he got brains to do this? In which I can think you what do. And you don't use your own free will and moral agency.
Sure. Take your time.
So I feel like the specific
Remember, the
people
counter's
that I
still
would,
going.
vote for, like his policies would specifically be how I would feel, would not be based off of his Christian morals, and that's how I vote.
So where do you want him to find his morals? Like in the trash can, or like if you're electing a person to be who's a Christian into office, right? Where do you want him to get his information for how he's going to rule morally? If you're a Christian and you point to some other stance and say that's more moral than my stance, then why are you a Christian?
Give me a second.
Brava. I don't know, but that is why specifically when I modern day debate put out the email saying they were looking for 5 people to do this, and they said Jubilee style, and I was like, I'm in as long as there's no running to chairs. As long as there's no running to chairs, I'm in, and there'll be no running to chairs.
So,
I love this. I love that editing. This is Jake adding this. Static. So all right, so he's having trouble, right? So you move on to the next person. Oh, we're still with this guy. All right. Let's move on to the next person. That was
Yeah,
this
go against
guy.
the Constitution. No.
But I thought I'm pretty sure that I was before this guy. Maybe I was after.
What part of
Maybe I was
what part of
after.
the Constitution?
Okay.
14th Amendment.
Going
People to death.
same
We don't kill
guy.
people for not being virgins on their wedding day. What do you think that is?
Okay.
Saying what's actually wrong with these Muslims having Sharia law, which is to say, from the secular atheist perspective, that's morally relative, and in terms
Now
of
we
its
move
prescriptions.
Shout out to Gabriel. Big shout out to Gabriel. This table was in front of like a little deli. Best conversations had at this table, and Gabriel was leading a lot of them.
It's made up in your head.
What if it wasn't written down, but it was implied? Just like, but yes, it was implied by all the other evidence. Hey! You need to see the other evidence too that I bring forth. If I were to go in court, I will win. I will win.
And pretty much the same in this following exchange.
So, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, I think that it's that Christians have as much right to rule as secularists or atheists.
So my answer is going to be yes, but no. We need to understand, we need to see to its fullest extent of what is Christian ethics in its totality, not because of a different sect of denomination, but we need to actually be precise because there's going to be consequences from each decision we make, which is self-evident what type of nation we live in today, where you have certain conservative Christians claiming to be this nation is good, great, and greatest, but can that be tested? And if it were to be tested and it's proven that it's actually evil and corrupt, because what is the doctrine, dogmas, for example, the Declaration of Independence. I don't support the Declaration of Independence because it seems to be that's not the kingdom of God nor any representation of that, because it seems to be a declaration of dependence, proclamation in freedom versus proclamation in kingdom. Why? Because there's an actual leader, a king thereof kings. There's a reason behind that.
What the hell are you talking about, dude?
Well, there
I
has
have no idea what you're even talking about.
So some people were, they were doing some stuff, and then other people were like, hey,
look, I understand. Look, to me, it seems like if Christians were to rule and were to lead, my question is, what type of Christian? Because obviously secular humanism, their fundamental foundation, their doctrinal substance cannot sustain.
We just started with something simple like the Ten Commandments.
The Ten Commandments? My question would be, are there anything prior to the Ten Commandments that we have to account for? And if we don't do that,
I'm sure there's things prior that you'd have to account for, but let's just
he comes back.
say that
He's
we
come
started
back.
with that.
Come on.
well, it has to come. Well, there has to be, if we account for the Ten Commandments, we need to know the reason why behind each commandment itself, from the beginning to the end. So we have the totality of reason that is logical and rational to persuade people to submit themselves to obedience, to uphold that all the way through their life. But as for this nation, we don't do that. There's problems with freedom in itself because you're allowing free will domain with corrupt individuals where technically we are.
Now, there's your boy. There's your boy. But if I had to try to guess what I think Gabriel is getting at, he's saying that similar to what I'm saying is that Andrew and many other people use the Bible or a religion as a justification, but he is similar, coming from a different perspective. He's also asking, well, why should we trust that? And like he said earlier, where the fuck am I? This is him, and this is the feedback and advice I had. And I've always said I think he's got a lot of good ideas. It's just a lot more difficult to spit them out in a coherent way than we think. But there we go. We got box on screen
with corrupt individuals where technically we are.
Don't do that stuff. And then other people are like, hey, yeah, they should do, that stuff. It's good that they're doing that stuff. And then the other people are like, I don't think they should be doing that stuff.
We're basically children who has been given an unlawful, knowledgeable wisdom to be unwise as an option. And then we
Do you take medication by chance?
Medication? Mm-hmm. Oh, not at all. Unless I'm breathing air. That's a certain type of medication I'm happy with. Okay. I mean, I desire truth at its fullest.
I literally just don't have any idea what the hell you're talking about. Like, I can't follow even what you're saying.
Okay. So should Christians...
I bet you do. If I'm saying real Christians don't actually follow the 10 commandments, they follow Christ's 2 commandments. Tell that to the not real Christians.
Rule instead of secular humanism. Yes, but no. There's a contingency plan behind that. I say yes to a Christian, but how can I trust that Christian when his Christian ethics are corrupt along the way or has been corrupt from the very beginning?
And I think Andrew could agree with a lot of people who call themselves Christians, even as any film is bringing up right now, the real Christians, people who actually call themselves Christians and people who live a pious Christ-like life may not necessarily be the same thing. But let's finish up what Gabriel was saying, and then we'll see what Jake Rattlesnake TV has to say about your boy, the Indian Jesus, at Modern Day Debate, debating Andrew Wilson, the blood sport debater from the Crucible.
That Christian,
but that would just apply to anybody. How can you trust anybody? Anybody their ethics could have been corrupted along the way. Anybody could have a problem with X, Y, and Z.
And that
I heard you got a little gigantic something else. You know what I'm saying?
Really doesn't have anything to do with anything, though, right?
Well,
why draft any law? Some people are going to violate them.
Well, the point of a law is to be true.
No, that's not the point of a law. Is to be true.
Yes, to have a true sense of what is truth, that is good, that is deemed to be applied on the individuals, groups of individuals in this domain.
So you should stop at a stop sign is true?
Because, and for the cause and effect, it depends. Stop adding at a stop sign. You are not only taking care of yourself, you're taking care of people around you.
Isn't it also true that you can blow through a stop sign and nothing happens?
Then you because of your failure and nothing happens, you were lucky that something you avoided.
So it sounds like laws are there to restrict behavior based on outcomes that could be bad.
Correct, and it can be prevented.
But that really doesn't have anything to do with a truth claim exactly, does it?
Well, it does play a part of truth.
Yeah, like if we had a law that said when you walked indoors to this particular building, you have to take your hat off. If you left your hat on, what would be the negative consequence of that?
Well, why would they have the law in the first place?
Let's just say they do.
Well, you should care. And that's my point. Either it's 100% or it's nothing.
Yeah, but let's just say they...
So that's a good example of where I think it demonstrates how Gabriel's mind works. Because they're on a track of talking about this law of you can't wear hats inside. What would happen if you did? And the reason for that law in Andrew's example is irrelevant. So he's just saying, I don't care. And then that triggers something in Gabriel saying, well, you should definitely care about why we have the laws, which is true, but it's just not relevant to the point that Andrew is making.
They did.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
What's the truth we're trying to establish here? There's no truth claim we're trying to establish.
Interaction, maybe courtesy, professional or personal, in a way, in a manner of a format that could exist in the actually ideal real world that we live in, that it can be that possible way of living, that courtesy can be drawn from the law's reflection of what is desired, intended.
I'm lost again, dude.
Oh, my apologies.
In conclusion.
All right, and that is time. So if you're counting, that is already 4 different people that we've covered. Let's see what he's got to say about your boy.
I have no idea.
So if anybody can decipher the cryptic message hidden within what he was saying there, I would love to know. Please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, guys. Subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to watch another video, right here. Till next time.
Wait. So we started with the coming up, right? And then we scrubbed through. We were talking with this guy, number 1. Then we went to number 2, or no, this is still number 1. Then we went to number 2 here. Wasn't doing very well at all. And then we had number 3 that we skipped over as well. This guy. Number 4 was our boy Gabriel. And then that's the end of the video. I wonder, why would Jake Rattlesnake BFF of Andrew Wilson, cover a video where Andrew destroys 5 atheists. But he only covers 4. You can make of that what you will. But I'm going to say it's because he ain't had shit to say to me. I think it's about that time, guys. Who's ready? Who's ready? Time to pay ourselves! You guys pay me, now let's pay ourselves. Let's get an extra treat for Morty. Here, $69. $69. I'm rounding down. That is 34 push-ups. Let's see if this skinny ass boy can get 34 push-ups. Oh, Jesus. All right. Oh, yourself. Can't do 35. Do 20. Can't do 20. Do 10. Let's go. 34. Right here. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ah, what's your good luck, baby? Let's fucking go! Swole goal met. Swole goal met. Who paid themselves? Who paid themselves? Oh, he's paying me for a whole video. Hey, I'll take the attention. I'll take the attention because you know he ain't gonna be able to smack me down like the other one. I know what is good. I am about to make it as soon as we head to the after. I need to hear it. I need to hear it. Somebody doing something. I need 5, at least 5 push-ups or a pull-up or a something. Hey, shout out to with the gifted membership. Shout out to the Eerie Fairy Tales. Probably not here. Long time no see. Either way, a treat for Morty. And of course, Eerie Fairy Tales, if you are here, we missed you. Come on back and hang out in the after party again. I don't know if King Jimmy Coates is still here, but you do have access to our after party. We are headed over there right now. But I want to give a big thank you to all of the donations. Arrow came in before the show even started, the earliest donation we ever did yet. TV Viewers Game. With the $10 PayPal, we had Gabriel with the 5 Monk Master Carol in the bed. Again, Fox came in with the 5, and he fell with the 2. Just adding push-ups, and of course, the gifted membership. Thank you so very much, guys. You guys are amazing. I really do appreciate it. I know. Okay. Well, your Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern here with the Overlord and myself, and it means the world to me, guys. Thank you so very much. Remember, I'm not going to sit around. So if you want the after party, you have to make sure that you're in the after party. If you are in the after party, I will show up. So make sure you're there. Guys, thank you so very much for hanging out. Once again, guys, this is Morty, and I have been your host, Fletch, a.k.a. the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, we are new. Make sure you subscribe. Peace.